Hi everyone, and welcome to Bonnie Astrology. Today I'm going to be discussing the astrology of and the horoscopes for June 2026, what the month ahead has in store for your zodiac sign. If you do enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up to let me know that you like it. Please subscribe to the channel for regular astrology content from me. And if you want to visit my website to check out any of my astrological services, the information is listed in the description box below, as well as my other astrological socials. So I'm going to look at the astrology of June first and foremost, but if you do want to click ahead to your horoscope, the timestamps are listed in the description box below. And I do suggest that you watch your rising sign for the most accurate forecast. But if you do not know your rising sign, if you don't have your birth time, sun sign astrology is rather accurate as well. So you can watch for your sun sign. And if you want to have a bit of an indication on what the month ahead has in store for you emotionally speaking, watching from your moon sign can also give you some valuable insights as well. So let's begin with the numerology of June. Now, as you know, 2026 is a number one year in numerology, meaning that it is a year of new beginnings. It is a year of fresh starts, trying new things, finding new interests, meeting new people, opening yourself up to new experiences. But because 2026 is a number one month in numerology and June is the sixth month of the year, we add these two together and we come to the conclusion that June is a number seven month in numerology. Now, from a planetary perspective, number seven corresponds to the planet Neptune, and Neptune is currently going through Aries. So there is a sense in June that trusting your intuitive hunch, leaning into your intuition, maybe leaning into your own personal spiritual beliefs. Neptune in Aries is about exploring your own spiritual beliefs independently. Perhaps moving away from what in some cases, what your upbringing dictated in terms of your religious or spiritual beliefs or what all your friends think. It's about discovering your own unique relationship with your spiritual beliefs and how they can indeed be quite different from the people around you, and that that's okay. You might be on your own spiritual journey and your own spiritual path with this Neptunian frequency that we're experiencing in June. Remember that Aries is the sign of the individual. It's pioneering, it's brave. So you can be exploring your beliefs with curiosity, maybe looking into something new, trying a new approach, trying a fresh approach to something. But it can also be that when it comes to your own personal interests, perhaps you're following your intuition on what would be right for you to try, what would be right for you to initiate, using your intuition and following your hunches when it comes to any new beginnings that are occurring in your life. That can be what the frequency of Neptune is bringing to the month of June. Now, in terms of June's energy in an astrological sense, we have quite a lot of focus on a few signs in general. We have a lot of focus on the sign of Gemini, we have a lot of focus on the sign of Cancer, and we have a lot of focus on the sign of Leo. And one of the major astrological events that's happening this month is going to be that the planet Jupiter is shifting from the sign of Cancer into the sign of Leo. Now, this is not happening until the very end of June. It's happening on the 30th of June. But where Jupiter goes, it tends to bring expansion. Now, there is this misconception in astrology that Jupiter, because it is known as the Great Benefic, is an easy ride where there is an abundance of opportunities at any given moment and that everything is hunky-dory. That is not quite the case with Jupiter. But it certainly brings a lot of spiritual knowledge, a lot of wisdom from experiences. So when Jupiter comes around as a transit, even if the experience itself is not necessarily the easiest, even if it is difficult, you tend to be more aware of the lesson and of the wisdom that you're getting from it. It tends to be an area of life where you learn a lot and you gain a lot of insight and you gain a lot of wisdom. And yes, there do tend to be more opportunities in that sector. There is more room for growth. You can indeed notice more abundance in that area, but you can also become aware, especially when Jupiter connects with your natal chart. You can become aware of how much your own sense of optimism, of hope, of faith, of feeling lucky actually generates more of the same. A Jupiter transit can be where you feel optimistic, so you bounce into a social environment, smiling, feeling happy, feeling excited, feeling optimistic. And then people are drawn to you, and some of those people have opportunities, and some of those people are going to be new relationships, and some of those people want to recommend you for something or want to give you something. That's the energy of Jupiter that you can tap into. So we're wrapping up the final month of Jupiter in Cancer, and we're wrapping it up in really quite a lucky way because Venus is going to be in Cancer until the 13th. So we have the two benefics, Jupiter and Venus, in the sign of Cancer, and they actually connect by conjunction on the 9th of June. And especially if you have any natal placements at 24, 25, 26 degrees of Cancer, consider yourself super blessed with this particular conjunction. But also if you have 24, 25, 26 degrees of Pisces or Scorpio, you can also find yourself absolutely blessed with this conjunction. Same goes for 24, 25, 26 degrees of the earth signs. But generally, even if you don't have placements or angles at those points, you can still feel the energy of this abundance in the house that it falls in. And I'll get into that in the horoscopes. But around the 8th, 9th, 10th of June, we can definitely see this beautiful social energy. Relationships can feel wonderful. You can feel growth in a connection. You can feel growth financially. You can feel optimistic about your social connections. You could be meeting significant people. You could be encountering significant opportunities, and you could just be feeling this really lovely energy in the air of love and connection and even nostalgia in the sign of Cancer, running into someone you haven't seen in a long time, reconnecting with someone that you care about, reconnecting with someone that you love, feeling closer to another person or other people, and feeling this beautiful sense of growth and optimism and hope socially, in your love life, in your financial affairs. It can definitely feel like a really lovely time. So that might be a wonderful time to socialize, especially in the sign of Cancer, with family, to arrange a social event, to be out and about mingling with people, to open your heart up to possibilities and open yourself up to opportunities, because that can absolutely be a time where they manifest. And your Cancerian house generally, or in terms of family, in terms of property, these can be big topics that are coming up for discussion just generally socially, because Mercury enters Cancer on the 1st, and it's actually going to be there for 2 months. And when Mercury is in a specific sign, that tends to be what we are thinking about, where our mind is going, what we're talking about with other people. So there can be big discussions, big topics coming up in the news or just in general discussions about family, property matter. You might notice that people are sharing a little bit more about their family experiences, their living experiences. And because Mercury is there for 2 months, this is going to be a longer running storyline. So in your own life, your Cancerian house is going to be at the forefront of your mind in a very positive way in the first 13 months of June, and even to be honest, for most of June because Jupiter is there. But Mercury is going to go retrograde in the sign of Cancer, and Mercury is going to go retrograde on the 29th, which is the same day as the full moon in its opposite sign, Capricorn. So we have this area of life, this Cancerian area of life up for review. And this is certainly going to bring into the news, I would say, discussions about the property ladder, the property market, family dynamics, family situations. It can also bring up discussions about national affairs, local affairs in the sign of Cancer as well, particularly local leadership, with that full moon being in the sign of Capricorn. But generally speaking, the Mercury retrograde is about reviewing your Cancerian house, or reviewing what family, what property, what your home is like, maybe considering redecorating, maybe considering renovating. That could be a big thing over the next couple of months for a lot of people wanting to refine and review that area of life. But individually speaking, where Cancer falls in your chart, there can be review, there can be reflection, there can be reconnection with the Mercury retrograde, and there can just generally be a sense of mental focus on that area for a prolonged period due to the retrograde, with Mercury being retrograde in the sign of Cancer. It also, of course, goes without saying that Mercury retrograde from the 29th of June to the 23rd of July. Trickier time to travel doesn't mean that you should write it off, but it can be a time where there's significant delays in an airport, your flight's delayed, your baggage gets lost, your plans go awry, communication can be misconstrued, and sometimes that means that we have to review our approach to these things. So maybe if you're someone that typically flies by the seat of your pants in terms of your journey to your airport, or whatnot, you realize that actually I need to be a little bit more prepared in future. You certainly need to be a little bit more prepared during this retrograde period because Mercury retrograde in the sign of Cancer, it can be, especially if you're going through immigration or home security or something like that, there can be delays, there can be increased checks, perhaps. It can also be that just generally your communication with your family, maybe there is something that needs to be reviewed there. There are patterns, there are ways of approaching communication in family dynamics, family relationships that need to be reviewed. And perhaps you are with Jupiter there gaining the wisdom of, oh, this pattern is playing out in our family dynamics, in our home dynamics, in terms of how we communicate about chores, in terms of how we communicate about plans or talk about our feelings. This dynamic is playing out. We need to review this and reconsider our approaches. That can certainly be a theme of Mercury retrograde in Cancer. Now, your Taurus house is also going to be interesting in June because Mars is going through the sign of Taurus. Mars is going to be there until the 28th. Uranus has left Taurus for the next 84 years or so. But Chiron is actually entering Taurus this month on the 19th. And Chiron is all about healing. Chiron is all about addressing our wounding within whatever house it falls in natally or whatever house that it is transiting. So Chiron has been going through Aries from around 2019. And where Chiron goes, we do tend to be on a healing journey. It's not always loud. It's relatively subtle unless it is directly hitting your chart as it will at different points. But Chiron going through Taurus, for a lot of people, this is about the voice. This is about speaking up. This is about expressing yourself. Maybe it's about singing. Maybe it's about the sound of your voice. I mean, if you put yourself on the internet, I've experienced this from doing YouTube, but if you put yourself on the internet, it's always awkward to hear your voice at first. In fact, sometimes it's quite grating and painful, but the more that you do it, you get used to it. So for a lot of people with Chiron being in Taurus, it's going to be about healing your relationship around your voice, self-expression. For some people, it's singing. For some people, it is about being heard, speaking up, or just general self-expression. Taurus is about the throat. And if you look at the chakra system, the throat chakra, it sits between the heart chakra and your third eye, your crown. It's the connector between the heart and the head. And so there may be some healing in terms of expression, whether it's that you feel you're maybe expressing yourself overly emotional, maybe you're letting it build up for a long period of time and then it's all flooding out. Or if you're speaking entirely from the head and you're completely rationalizing your feelings and intellectualizing them and they don't get expressed at all. So there can be this interesting feeling comes from Chiron moving into Taurus, where a lot of people might suddenly notice that there's something going on with the throat, that they feel as though they're missing something when it comes to their communication, when it comes to their expression, or even just wounding surrounding money and worth and value and what you have to offer, your natural gifts. And if you have any wounding surrounding expressing those or even monetizing them, or wounding surrounding abundance, worth, and being deserving of a certain standard of life or being deserving of a certain um, value system that you have. Now, Mars is going through that sector, which means that this sector of life, your Taurus house, can be a little bit irritable at times. There can be frustration in terms of something maybe moving quite slow with Mars and Taurus. There can also be irritation at being pushed to move quicker than you want to. And Mars going through Taurus can bring about arguments about money, arguments about values more than usual. But Mars is going to shift into Gemini on the 28th. And from that shift, we're going to start to feel that building of the Mars-Uranus conjunction, which happens on the 4th of July. And Mars, when it connects with Uranus, this is the first Mars-Uranus conjunction we're experiencing in about 84 years in the sign of Gemini. You know, we experienced it roughly 2 years ago in the sign of Taurus. And then because Uranus was going through Taurus for about 7 to 8 years, we've experienced that conjunction in Taurus for about the last 7 years or so. This one's happening in the sign of Gemini. It's relatively new terrain. But this can mean that when it comes to something moving too quickly, this can be where your mouth moves quicker than you intend it to, and you say the thing and think, oh. Or it can be that you're being pushed to send that email, send that communication, have that discussion. And it can sometimes make things move a little bit too quickly. Mars connecting with Uranus, you can feel pushed too far too fast. You can feel things escalating, especially when it comes to communication, when it comes to social media, when it comes to the internet. It can be explosive. This tends to coincide with significant explosions in the world. There can also just simply be this irritability of the mind where you maybe feel a little bit more anxious, you feel a little bit more mentally tense, you're having angrier thoughts. And if you let those rule you, you can do something in an instant that is very explosive and causes a lot of destruction. But in some cases as well, in the higher vibration of this, mentally speaking, you can figure something out that releases you, something that frees you, or you can get clarity on what it is that you need to do to break free, clarity on what it is that you need to do to get yourself out of a particular situation or circumstance that is very limiting for you mentally. And a lot of people under this Mars-Uranus conjunction are going to be fighting for freedom of speech, freedom to think, freedom to think for themselves. And this can be rebellion against AI, doing our thinking, doing our writing, doing all the communication parts of Gemini. This can also be where people feel as though they are being silenced. And especially because this is happening around the time of a full moon in Capricorn, it can be where there are topics of whether people can speak out against leadership or poke fun at leadership or have different opinions to leadership. That can be something that's coming up as well in June. In terms of the energy of the full moons, we did have a full moon on the 31st of May, but we will be feeling the effects of that full moon in the first week of June. So that full moon was in Sagittarius. This can really spark forward a feeling of adventure, wanting to explore, especially because we are in a Neptune month. That energy coming in from May into June with the number 7 numerology can be about exploring your spiritual perspectives. It can be more of a wanting to explore maybe the paranormal, wanting to explore different topics about religion or spirituality, or being more curious about religion or spirituality or your own unique spiritual journey. But it can certainly be calling to take an adventure, to take a trip, to travel to see someone, to travel to see something, or to learn about something, to receive some kind of an education on a topic that is really interesting you. Full moons in Sagittarius, the energy really for me has always felt like you want to go down the rabbit hole in a particular subject or topic, and you suddenly want to listen to every podcast that's going on that topic, or you want to read about it, or you want to talk about it. It's definitely the energy of adventure. And because it's ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is exalted in Cancer at the time of this full moon, it can feel fun, it can feel enriching on a soul level. Now, the full moon in June, which is going to be happening on the 29th, we tend to feel the energy of the full moon from about the week before to the week after. So around the summer solstice, if you're in the northern hemisphere, winter solstice, if you're in the southern, around the 21st to early July, we are feeling the effects of this full moon in Capricorn. And as I mentioned before, Capricorn can be about the government, it can be about leadership, it can be about hierarchy. And this one is a little bit tricky because it is going to be ruled by Saturn in Aries. Saturn does not express itself so comfortably in Aries. Uh, it's also in a square to Saturn. So this one can feel testing, and you can experience limitation, you can experience restriction, and you can experience frustration, particularly when it comes to leadership. So maybe a boss or maybe a high up political figure, and their perspectives on conflict with Saturn being in Aries, their perspectives on war, their perspectives on individuality, their perspectives on, or perhaps their own actions and how it's affecting your unique individual experience with Saturn being in Aries. So whether it's a boss in your own life, or whether it's your own business, whether it is your career trajectory, whether it is your sense of purpose, because Capricorn, we do as astrologers put it into this box of, oh, it's your career and it's your work and it's your job. It's also your purpose, what you feel is your purpose. And not everybody does their purpose for their career or their job. People have different purposes in this lifetime. And in its essence, Capricorn is about our goals, whether they be work related or not. It's what we're aspiring to achieve. It's the mountains that we're climbing. This might actually be a time where people are climbing mountains. I do just want to give a caveat on that, though. From an astrological perspective, I believe that the, and I'm paraphrasing information on this because I looked it up recently, but the last time that Mars was in Taurus and Saturn was in Aries in the mid 90s coincided with one of the worst disasters on Mount Everest. It's not the best month, if I'm being honest, to take risks when it comes to sport or take risks when it comes to anything that puts your life in danger, essentially. Just be mindful of that because Mars is the ruler of Aries. Saturn is in Aries, quite a restrictive energy when it comes to taking risks. It kind of asks us to think long and hard before we do something that is risky. And although in May and part of April, Mars was in Aries, and a lot of the planets were in Aries, and that was bringing these huge advancements in terms of competitive sports with, the London Marathon, the record being broken by the first and second runner-up. Mars being in Taurus is very different. So just be mindful if you are going hiking or something, pay attention to the weather, pay attention to your own limitations, listen to your body. Don't push beyond your means because it can really be it's not the best month to take those kind of risks, I think is what I'm trying to say in essence. But that full moon in Capricorn does bring us to review our goals, but to appreciate our limitations and to appreciate risks and to appreciate restrictions. And sometimes the rules are there for a reason. So with that full moon in Capricorn, you might be reviewing your career, your goals, your purpose, what it is that you're aspiring to do, and realizing if there maybe are some lessons that you need to learn or some things that you need to take accountability for. Or it can just bring to a head frustrations globally with leadership, with structures, with hierarchies, with corporations. These different types of bodies and people will indeed be coming up for review around the time of that full moon, especially coinciding with a Mercury retrograde. You might see somebody trip up on their words and reveal something that is very telling with that full moon itself. The new moon of June is happening on the 14th of June, and it is going to be happening in the sign of Gemini. It's a new moon in Gemini at 24 degrees. If you have anything 23, 24, 25 degrees of Gemini, this new moon can indeed be a wonderful new beginning for you in your life. Now, even if you don't, it's happening in a certain part of your chart, so a new beginning can occur, but it can also be about setting new intentions for the long term, taking stock on what it is that you want to experience in that area and how you're going to get toward it. Bearing in mind Mercury is going to be going retrograde, you may find that if you do begin something new around this time, you have to rethink it, re-strategize and reflect, or bring something from the past forward in a new way. New moons in Gemini are very versatile. They are great for thinking, for communicating. In fact, new beginnings can happen around this time because of a conversation, because of one idea. This can be about putting one idea into practice and nurturing it. Mercury will be in the sign of Cancer. Mercury is the dispositor. Cancer is all about nurturing. So if you have a new idea, if you have something you want to learn, if you have something you want to begin, be prepared to nurture it, to take care of it, to wrap it in a blanket and give it a lot of love and a lot of support. This isn't the type of situation where if you find, you can just plant a seed and leave it be. This is about where you have to nurture it and take care of it and maybe even mother it a little bit. But in its essence, it's going to be about beginning something new that feels lively, it feels exciting, it feels mentally rejuvenating, but it also feels like it needs security and it needs sentimentality and it needs that emotional connection. You need to be prepared to love whatever it is that you're beginning. You need to feel prepared to take care of it and to make sure that it feels right. As I mentioned before, Chiron going into Taurus a few days after this new moon, this can be about bridging the gap between the head and the heart and making sure that they're having a conversation and one isn't ruling over the other and there isn't this blocked traffic between your head and your heart. This is about leaning into your ideas, your mental creativity, but also feeling emotionally connected to the new beginning. New moons in Gemini, you can see a lot of people getting new cars. You can see a lot of people getting new phones, new gadgets, upgrading. Just be mindful with Mercury being in shadow. You need warranty, you need to double check the contract, you need to trust your intuition if you think that somebody is trying to trick you. Mercury retrograde can reveal tricksters in your life, but in its essence, this new moon is all about new beginnings that feel heart-centered, with Mercury being in Cancer. I'm going to pull a tarot card for the month of June and see what we get. From an astrological perspective, I really like the month of June. I think that Venus Jupiter conjunction in Cancer looks lovely, especially because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. I also like the look of this new moon because I think that it is going to be lively and social and energetic and exciting. I think most of the tension that we feel in June is going to be toward the end. I think Mars and its building conjunction to Gemini can start to feel very restless and can start to feel very verbally, it can bring verbal diarrhea. You can say something and think, why did I say that? Or just blurts out and you regret it in an instant, or it causes damage in an instant. You can notice as well other people saying things to you where you think, geez. But that full moon in Capricorn is also quite tense because of its square to Saturn and Mercury going retrograde. I sort of feel like in terms of June, the loveliest energy is at the beginning and the trickier energy is at the end. But in terms of Mercury retrograde, life does go on. Just be mindful that the more flexible that you are in terms of plans changing and being open to changing plans and being open to the fact that sometimes communication goes wrong and that you can fix it. Because a lot of a person's character, I think, especially with Cancerian energy, a lot of a person's character lies in the repair after the miscommunication. And you can actually have communication issues with somebody, but if you repair it and you work through it and you address it with Mercury and Cancer, you can have a bond for life. You can have someone that feels like family. But you can also be living out childhood trauma and communication issues that you have with a parent, with someone in your workspace or someone in your friendship circle or just a stranger. So be mindful of that too, that sometimes it isn't actually what someone is saying, it's what it means to you and what it reveals to you. It can be very insightful, Mercury retrograde in Cancer. There can also be a time where people feel more inclined to want a reunion. The Lovers, beautiful. It is Gemini season, and the Lovers in tarot represents Gemini. But if you notice in this particular deck, the bow and arrow at the top, that can be about Cupid's arrows striking, especially with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction happening. This can be about falling in love, head over heels. I mean, Venus conjunct Jupiter could be, especially if it's happening in a romantic house, like the fifth or the seventh, or even the 11th. It can be about absolutely falling head over heels in love with someone. And as I said, with the 11th, that can even be platonically, like just meeting a best friend and thinking you are great, or meeting someone and it feels as though they are your soulmate, your perfect person. The Lovers can absolutely be a romantic energy, but it's also about choices. It's also about the freedom to choose, the freedom to explore your options in life. And Gemini is, as I said before, a very versatile sign. It likes to explore its options, has many facets to it, and needs to be intellectually and emotionally stimulated. So don't be afraid this month to explore new things that feel exciting to you. It can be new hobbies, it can be new passions. They can also be, as I say, with the Lovers, new romantic interests, and falling in love can definitely be something that happens a lot of people in June. And not only that, because Venus enters Leo in the 13th and Jupiter enters Leo in the 30th, Leo is the sign of the heart. Leo is the sign of dating and romance and when it feels like a movie. So this can be a very heart-centered month in general, and then the essence of Neptune, and Neptune represents soulmates and the period in a relationship where you look at someone and you think that they're your ideal person and they can do no wrong, and it's all very rose tinted. That can absolutely be an essence of June. So that is what I have for the month of June. The timestamps are listed below for your horoscopes. I hope you all have a wonderful month and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Aries, welcome to your horoscope for June 2026. Now Aries, we begin the month with the aftermath of the full moon in Sagittarius, which although it happened on the last day of May, its effects will still be felt in the first few days to a week of June. Now this full moon has fallen in your ninth house, and the ninth house is about travel, it's about foreign locations, vacations. You could be traveling to see family with Jupiter, the dispositor, being in the fourth, or family could be traveling to see you. You could be connecting with family from abroad. You could be considering buying a property overseas or in a foreign location. Some of you could be relocating, or some of you could just be taking a family vacation. Or perhaps studying something at home. Maybe you're looking into getting the book that you've been writing from your home published, or maybe you are learning something about your family lineage, your family history, researching your ancestry, or you're more interested in learning about your family, asking your parents questions, or something like that. Aries could be very much in effect in the first few days of the month. Maybe for some of you, this is a graduation, exam results, matters pertaining to higher education, university, college, schooling, and the like. Now, we have a lot of activity happening this month in your Cancerian house, Aries. Mercury is going to be there from the 1st of June, and it's going to be there for 2 months because of the retrograde period. Mercury is going to go retrograde on the 29th of June until the 23rd of July, all through your fourth house. Now, your fourth house is going to be, despite the retrograde, really quite lucky. We have a meetup of Venus and Jupiter on the 9th. So there could actually be really positive connections with your family members this month, getting on better with your family, social events relating to family, house parties that go really well. For some of you with Jupiter, this can be about expanding your property, renovating, redecorating, moving. All of these matters are really quite blessed, particularly in the first half of the month. Now, with Mercury going retrograde on the 29th, this might be an area that you later review. So you start to reassess and review what's happening in the home, what's going on with family members. It can result in miscommunication, of course. The sun enters that sector on the 21st, which further highlights your thoughts and your energy going towards home matters, property matters, family matters. And this can really help you reassess how you and your family communicate. You might notice that you're a bit more sensitive to the words of others, and you may feel a bit more influenced and affected by the words of family or even people that are strangers, what they say to you. It might reflect a deeper wound that you have, maybe with communication with a parent. Whether you discuss your feelings or don't discuss your feelings, it can certainly bring up past matters that you want to address and maybe look at them differently or think about them differently or approach them differently. Aries, but certainly in the first half, your home, your family life, very blessed. Second half, there's a bit of review going on that's going on into July and reassessment and reflection. With Mercury retrograde from the 29th, double check any contracts relating to the home. Not the best time to put in an offer on a house or sign with a new contractor or get new people in to work on the home because you might not necessarily be sure who you're getting and there can be dishonesty. If you sign on the dotted line for a home, it may well fall through and you could lose money when Mercury is retrograde in the fourth house. So be careful of that. Be careful of anything contractually linked to home or property matters, but also be more open to the fact that communication might not be so great during that time with family members, but you can review how you approach communication with family and property matters as well. It's a great time for reviewing the home, though. Reviewing your contract, reviewing your lease, reviewing your communication style with people in the home, particularly around chores or how you use the space. You might be rethinking your design. You might be rethinking how you style the home. But especially in the first half of the month with Venus there, you could get some great items for the home that really help beautify your space, Aries. Now, in terms of your Gemini house, we've quite a lot of activity there as well. The sun is going to be there until the 21st, and Mars is actually going to enter that sector on the 28th. Now, until the 21st, the sun going through your third house puts a lot of spotlight onto your siblings. There could be a lot going on with them. There could be a lot going on with neighbors. There could be a lot going on in your local community. Your mind might be very active, Aries. You might be thinking a lot about different topics, reading more books, listening to more podcasts. You might have more energy that you need to use up that requires a bit of intellectual stimulation. Your brain could be very active. And this can also put your focus on your cars, your vehicles, your technology. For some of you, you could be getting a new car around the new moon on the 14th of June. You could be getting a new phone. You could be getting a new gadget that really helps you with home matters. So something that is technological that you can put in your home. It can also be a time where you are perhaps approaching, if you're on social media for your business, you may be approaching it differently. Maybe people that are Aries rising are putting their home renovations online or their gardening online, putting some of the activities going on with your home onto the internet. Or it could just simply be that there's a new interest in your life, Aries. And I do think with Mercury in Cancer, it could be to do with home renovations, restyling the home, or just, as I mentioned before, rethinking how you communicate with family members in general. Now, a word of warning, Mars is going to enter Gemini on the 28th, and it's building in its conjunction to Uranus. And this is when things can escalate verbally, conversations can suddenly become explosive, opinions can be quite aggressively communicated. There can be tension with a sibling, tension with a neighbor that really reaches its peak in July, but you start to feel it build around this time. You could also be perhaps driving a bit too quickly, Aries. Be careful of that. This does tend to represent accidents, and in the third house, it can involve cars. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm just saying it to be mindful and to slow down, to take a slower approach, because Mars going through the third can bring road rage. And when it connects with Uranus, that can really be an accident prone transit. So just be mindful of that. You might also encounter this in road rage from other people or people unexpectedly veering out in front of you. Just things to be mindful of. Can be very helpful to know the astrology because it can help you prevent accidents by taking a slower, more cautious approach. But also be mindful of putting your opinions out there. Sometimes Mars can also be, if you're on social media, it can be where people leave you maybe more aggressive or abrupt or mean comments than usual, or you find yourself getting into more verbal debates. But it can also give you the energy to study, to research something, to learn more about a certain topic, possibly something quite new that really interests you, Aries. Now, looking at your Leo house, this is going to bring some romance into your life for you, Aries, if you're looking for that, or even if you're in a relationship already, it can really recharge it. And that is because Venus is entering your fifth house in the 13th. Great for dating, great for romance. Just be mindful that there is oppositional energy between Venus and Pluto. So you might find yourself dating someone that maybe your friends aren't as fond of, or they're vying for your attention, or you're not so fond of their friends, or there's some power struggles between your friends and your romantic interests. Or it could be that perhaps your children have friends that you're not so keen on, and maybe you're having to deal with that with Venus in Leo. But Venus going through Leo does make you a magnet for love, and especially from the 30th, when Jupiter enters this sector. Jupiter going into your fifth house from the 30th, Aries, can really bless you with romantic options. It can bring pregnancies, it can bring births, it can bring better times with your children, fun times with your children. It can also help you with your creative and artistic expression. You can discover new talents that you didn't know that you had, Aries. And it can really just be a time where you're prioritizing having more fun, having a good time, time to enjoy yourself, time to experience the more light-hearted, joyful energies of life. And especially if you're a creative, going into July, when Jupiter and Venus are coexisting in your fifth house, this can really be a great time to work on something creative, work on something fun, have more social opportunities, and generally enjoy yourself more, Aries. Now, towards the end of the month, we have the full moon in Capricorn up here in your 10th house. And this is going to highlight your career. It's going to highlight your job. And you could be, Aries, feeling somewhat limited here because it's in a square to Saturn in your first house. So maybe you feel like you have to put some limitations when it comes to your job if you've been overworking or you've been overexerting yourself or you've been given too much responsibility. You might have to set some boundaries, set some limits on yourself, but you could also be feeling a little bit limited by the growth and the opportunities that you have career-wise. Now, for some of you, this could be that you're getting a promotion or a business is taking off and it's really asking a lot of you. And you're having to figure out how to make time for yourself, your physical needs, your own personal needs and desires while accomplishing what you want to accomplish. A lot of you could be accomplishing a key goal at this time, or you could be finding that you are getting a promotion, you've been accepted for a new job, you want to open this new business, you're having a peak moment in your business. But as I say, you're having to think about your own personal needs and particularly physically. If you're having physical reductions in energy, or you're feeling more tired, or you're feeling as though you're giving too much of yourself, this full moon might be a checkpoint for you, Aries. So that is what I have for you for June. I hope you have a wonderful month and I will talk to you soon. Hi, Taurus. Welcome to your horoscope for June 2026. So, Taurus, I'm going to begin with the full moon in Sagittarius that happened on the 31st of May. You might wonder why I'm starting with a May full moon. Well, because it happened on the last day of May, the effects of the full moon are still going to be felt in the first few days to the first week of June. Now, for you, it's happening in a rather secretive and hidden house. It's happening in the eighth house. And the eighth house is about transformation. So, because the dispositor is Jupiter in the third, I think a lot of you are trying to transform the way that you think. You're trying to transform your mindset. For some of you, it could be changes coming up when it comes to a car or a phone or a gadget or a relationship to a neighbor or a sibling. But for a lot of you, it could be about changing and transforming your mindset. And maybe you're wanting to get some things off your to-do list and you're starting to re-strategize and reprioritize what matters to you, Taurus, in terms of what you're doing. Now, the full moon in the eighth house can also bring up matters of property pertaining to other people, finances pertaining to other people, your spouse's financial situation, and how that connects you as a relationship, how that affects you as a relationship. It can bring up matters about inheritance, it can bring up matters about taxes, accountants, and large sums of money and how you deal with money, especially when it is connected to other people. So there could be communication or correspondence, Taurus, about financial matters. For some of you, this can be about a breakthrough with a therapist or someone that you're working through a pattern or mental health matters with. Now, for you, Taurus, we have a lot going on in your third house this month. In the first half of the month, Venus is going to be in your third house until the 13th, and Jupiter is going to be there until the 30th. Now, we have the two benefics here. This can bring really positive events and situations when it comes to siblings, when it comes to cousins, when it comes to neighbors. So think social events in your neighborhood that are a lot of fun, that are very joyous and exciting, getting on better with siblings, fun events with your cousins and your extended family. This can also be for some of you about getting your dream car if you're looking for a car, or upgrading your phone. Or this can be about finding something that really interests you and you just love to learn more about it. Maybe if you're in school or you're taking classes, you're getting on so well with the people that you're learning with or studying with, or you're finding love through a class, or you're finding love locally. It can be, Taurus, that you just feel as though you're more optimistic, you're more hopeful, you're thinking more positively, and it can be a really lovely social, lively time for you. And your relationship with a sibling could be improved or deepening, or there could be very positive events happening in their lives that impact you in a positive way, Taurus. This can also be great for writing and great for communication projects. If you have a speech that you need to make or a book that you're writing, this can be a wonderful time to feel inspired and to connect with the right people to help you with those matters, Taurus. Now, the sun will enter that sector on the 21st. Mercury is going to be there all month from the 1st of June, and it's going to be there for 2 months because Mercury, as you can see here, goes retrograde. Mercury goes retrograde on the 29th of June and will be retrograde until the 23rd of July. This could actually bring some issues to the fore when it comes to a car or a vehicle or your phone. Between those dates that I just mentioned, the 29th of June and the 23rd of July, don't buy a new car, don't buy a new phone, don't get new gadgets. Check the contracts of anything twice during this time, and it's not advised to sign in the dotted line. It's actually a good time to go through all your papers, Taurus, and see if there's any clauses or details that you missed previously that could actually benefit you now. Reviewing past papers, reviewing your correspondence, going through old emails, giving your own personal audit to your personal papers, your interests, your schooling, your education, if you're studying, double check everything twice. It's a great time to revise. It's a great time to review. So if you're in school or in university, Mercury retrograde in the third is actually great for revision, because a lot of people have exams this time of year. But do double check where your exam is taking place, what dates you have to hand in your papers by. If you're not in school, even through work, make sure you're double checking deadlines. Not a great time to schedule important meetings between those dates. As I mentioned before, the first 13 days of the month in particular are great for these things. Second half of the month, we can run into some issues with Mercury retrograde. Can bring troubles with cars, miscommunication with neighbors, issues with communication, miscommunication, feeling more sensitive as well about miscommunication. So just watch for that as well, Taurus. Now, your Gemini house is very lit up this month also. The sun is there until the 21st, which is highlighting your finances. There's a new moon there on the 14th. So for you, Taurus, this could bring about a new beginning financially, a new form of making money, a new approach to money, a new financial contract, investing money into a car or a phone or a gadget. It could be that you are beginning a new way of making money that relates to social media or relates to writing or communication, or you are coming up with solutions when it comes to your financial situation, particularly if it pertains to family or pertains to the home. You're taking a new approach to money. This is something that is being revolutionized and rejuvenated thanks to Uranus in your financial sector, Taurus. It makes you more innovative, gives you more ideas, more new sparks. But from the 28th, Mars enters this sector. And this can be where you fight about money. This can be where you feel irritated about money. You can also spend money quicker. And especially with Mars approaching its conjunction to Uranus on the 4th of July, you feel this building from the 28th. You can feel like you're spending money faster. You can feel as though you're wanting to get a financial ball rolling. You can feel as though there are explosive arguments over money. And you may also find for some of you that you get a great idea and the ball starts rolling and goes really quick with a new business idea. Again, with Mercury retrograde, just be mindful of that. Don't sign contracts, as I said, after the 29th. You can, but I'm advising you not to. You can though, but it's just that if you don't double check it, or you don't always have the full picture when Mercury's retrograde. So just in terms of this budding conjunction here in the second, being very quick to throw money at something or spend money, invest more money into a problem can be tricky if it involves contracts and long-term plans. So be mindful of that, Taurus. But do keep your mind open in June to innovation, creative ideas, new opportunities appearing, and how to make money, or how to improve your financial situation, or even getting the right item for your study or for your communications. I do think for a lot of you, this could be a new phone or a new gadget that you're getting that really helps you maybe with a social media business or helps you manage your online affairs better, Taurus. Your first house is rather interesting this month because we have Mars going through your sign until the 28th. This can make you more direct, more of a push forward. You feel more motivated. You can feel a little bit more irritable. You can also feel a little bit more confrontational. With Mars being in Taurus, you may also feel like you need to dig your heels in at times when it comes to what you're doing. You can notice that maybe your communication is a bit sharper as well. And other people might be a little bit affronted by your approach at times, or other people might appreciate your directness. Mars energy manifests differently depending on how it's doing for you and other people. But Mars going through the first house tends to be a time where you enjoy the gym, you enjoy working out, you enjoy physical activities, you exert yourself more, you have more energy at times, but also you can push too far with Mars in the first as well. And one thing I want to put your attention to, Taurus, is here we have Chiron in your sign for the first time in 50 odd years. Chiron enters your sign in the 19th. And Chiron entering your sign is quite healing. This is going to be a longer term transit. Chiron will go back into Aries a bit later for its final stint in Aries. But what this is approaching for you, Taurus, is healing your relationship with yourself, noticing any wounding that comes up in terms of maybe your body, how you feel about yourself physically, how you heal your body, how you heal your relationship to yourself. Becoming your own healer is very common when Chiron goes through the first house, being more interested in healing, self-help, self-care, and being your own best friend in a way, and noticing where your relationship to yourself has some wounding that needs to be addressed. So that is something that's coming up for you at this time as well, Taurus. Now, with your fourth house, your home and your family, there's a few interesting things going on here. So, firstly, Venus is entering your home and family sector from the 13th. From the 13th onwards this month, great time to socialize with family. I do think a lot of you could be socializing with siblings, cousins, but this is just better for your family relationships in general. Great for finding things that make your home more beautiful and aesthetically pleasing to you, Taurus, as well. Having social events in the home. Jupiter is going to enter this sector on the 30th and will be there for a year. So you might not be feeling the effects of Jupiter in the fourth for most of June, but just to give you a preview of what it means, it expands your home. You could be moving to a bigger property. You could be renovating. You could be finding your dream home. You could be expanding your family. You could be getting on better with your family. You could be finding that home is where the heart is. Leo rules the heart. And so going into July with both the benefics in your fourth house, great for family, social activities, getting on better with your family, enjoying your family, liking your family, just feeling more at home at home. Home will very much be where the heart is towards later on in the month. And that could be after a time where you're quite busy in your local neighborhood, you're quite socially active, you're spending more time with people outside of the home. Later on in June, you start to feel that home is very much where you want to be. Now, we wrap up the month on the 29th. Well, we don't wrap it up on the 29th, but the full moon on the 29th helps wrap up the month. This is in your ninth house, Taurus. For some of you, this could be a vacation, a holiday, traveling. You'll feel the effects of this full moon in about the week before, peaks around the 3 days before and the 3 days after, and then you feel it going on into early July. Traveling, wanting to go to a foreign vacation, a foreign location, absolutely, because Saturn, the dispositor, is in the 12th. It's in a square to this full moon. Can bring about a little bit of fear or hesitation when it comes to taking a trip or a vacation, because the 12th house is the subconscious. You might discover what is holding you back from traveling. You might decide that you want to go somewhere that is very remote, very different. You don't want to go with many people. Some of you might go alone, but you might be wanting to take a retreat away from the hustle and bustle of life. Maybe you're feeling with Saturn in the 12th, you're a bit burnt out. Saturn in the 12th as a transit does actually coincide with going somewhere very different than where you're living. So you could be traveling to somewhere that is very different from your home, and you might be finding that it is what is best for your mental health, but there is a bit of fear and hesitation in terms of going for some Taurus, this traveling that you're doing. For others of you, it could be about getting exam results, discovering whether you did or did not get into university or college. This could be a time of exams, studying, matters of university, matters of college. And for some of you, it can also be if you have any hesitations or fears relating to, or even traumas relating to religion or spirituality, you could be addressing some of these. You could be addressing your relationship to faith. You could be addressing your relationship to the divine. Saturn going through the 12th really helps you uncover what you need to heal. And because it rules your ninth house, that can be religious trauma, spiritual fears, fear of the unknown, fear of adventure. So you could be discovering why you have a certain phobia, maybe of airplanes or traveling, or what is holding you back from taking that next adventure, even if it's nothing to do with travel. You could be exploring what is happening within you when it comes to travel. This can also be for some of you publishing something that you've been working on privately, Taurus. And that is what I have for you. I hope you have a great month, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hi, Gemini. Welcome to your horoscope for June 2026. And if you are watching this as a Gemini sun and you're celebrating your birthday in June, very happy birthday to you. So, Gemini, we begin this month with a little bit of focus on your significant other or your close relationships and connections. And that is because on the last day of May, on the 31st, we had a full moon, a blue moon in your partnership sector. And even though it happened in May, the effects of this full moon are being felt into the first few days of June to the first week. So there could very well be something going on with a partnership, with a relationship in your life, Gemini. Your partner might be more emotional, more sensitive. They might be demanding more from you. They might be requiring more from you. You could be spending more time with a partner. You could be working one-on-one with someone on maybe something financial. You're discussing your financial situation with your partner. You're discussing your values with your partner. Jupiter's in the second house. And for some of you, it could be as well that maybe you're falling in love with somebody new, you're meeting somebody new. Maybe for some of you, you're leaving a relationship or solidifying a relationship, committing deeper to a partnership, Gemini. Now, we also have a lot of focus on you. If you can see here, your first house of self. A lot going on this month. The sun is in your sign until the 21st, and we have a new moon in your sign on the 14th. So a lot of your energy and attention and focus is going to shift away from that full moon back onto yourself, shifting the focus away from partnerships and close connections and what you need from them and what they need from you, onto the self and your own individual identity. So what you want, what you need, your goals, your approach to life, how you're showing up to the world. For a lot of you, this could be about changing your appearance, changing your style and investing some money into yourself. It's going to be ruled by Mercury in your second house, that full moon, that new moon rather. So investing some money into your appearance, into yourself, into your skills, into who you are, into your, maybe even figuring out what your values are, what you stand for. But essentially, Gemini, it is about redirecting the focus onto you and how you want to look, how you want to feel, how you want to show up to the world, how you want to approach life. It's a cosmic reset. It's your annual new moon to reinvent yourself, especially because Uranus is now in your sign. Very new energy. We did feel it for a little bit in 2025, but this is about trying a new approach, being innovative with your style, trying something completely different to what you're used to. You might start to notice how much your style is changing and evolving, how much your approach to life is changing and evolving. You might be shocking people, surprising people, and just generally trying something that's maybe a bit out there and a bit different than what you're used to. Uranus is all about innovation. You could also be feeling more rebellious, rebelling against the old version of you with Uranus going through Gemini, feeling like your freedom of self-expression is the most important part of the month for you. So we do have a lot of focus on you with the sun there and with Uranus there and with the new moon. Mars enters your sign on the 28th, and almost immediately we feel that building of the Mars-Uranus conjunction, which is happening in early July. And I will discuss this in the July horoscopes, but because it's building in June, this can feel really explosive and quite erratic. So be mindful of your actions and your intentions behind your actions, Gemini. With Mars in your sign, you can feel inspired to move. With it being in Gemini, you can be inspired to talk, inspired to say the thing, even if it is harsh, abrupt, confrontational. With Uranus being there, you can say something out of the blue. You can do something out of the blue. It may not be out of the blue to you, but it could be perceived that way by other people. Just be careful of doing something too risky or with no preparation or no consideration, Gemini, because Mars conjunct Uranus can bring accidents. And that means that in the first house, you could have a physical accident. And I'm not saying this to scare you, I'm just saying this to forewarn and forearm. You know, Gemini actually rules the arm, so that's something to be mindful of. Just be careful of doing something impulsive and abrupt out of nowhere that could be harmful to you physically, Gemini. So just be mindful of that if you're engaging in sport. Sometimes it can bring an unexpected injury. It doesn't have to be a huge deal, but you know, you might sprain a finger or hurt your wrist or something like that, with Mars connecting with Uranus. So just be mindful of the erratic energy. Try to channel it into something innovative, especially mentally. Gemini, if you have something you want to write, if you have something you want to learn, to study, it could be a great time to get innovative when it comes to your own personal style in the first house, but also when it comes to your own personal interests generally, Gemini. So just be mindful of that. It does sometimes coincide with accidents. And if you have placements at about 3, 4, 5 degrees of Gemini, maybe two, in fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees of Gemini, just be mindful of doing something impulsive. You may be more accident prone around this time. Now, we also have a lot of activity in June when it comes to the third house. This for you is about communication, it's about neighbors, it's about siblings, it's about your immediate environment. And Venus is going to be there from the 13th. Jupiter is going to be there from the 30th. So you can see this month we have both benefics entering the third house. I'm also going to discuss your second house, Gemini, in just a second. This can bring blessings when it comes to your relationship to your siblings. Jupiter entering Leo on the 30th, you're not going to feel it so much in June, but you will be feeling it for a year from that point, from the 30th of June for a year. It will bring expansion, it will bring blessings, it will bring opportunity when it comes to third house matters. So, getting on better with neighbors, new neighbors that you really like, a new car that you really like, a new phone that you really like, expanding your social media business, getting on better with your siblings, getting on better with your cousins, going to more classes, finding topics that interest you, and going along to a class or a seminar that you really enjoy. It can also bring teachers that you really like, mentors that you really like. You can be involved in better times at your school if you're still in school. It can be getting the teacher that you want, taking the classes that you want, really expanding your mindset with Jupiter going through the third house. From about the 13th, you will notice with Venus being in that sector, more blessings coming into you from that point. So it can be a really nice time to connect with siblings, connect with neighbors. There could be more social events happening in your neighborhood that are enjoyable, that are pleasurable. And just generally, Gemini getting on better with siblings, getting on better with neighbors and cousins and aunts and uncles and that type of person. Now, before Jupiter and Venus enter your third house, they will be blessing your second. So until the 13th, Venus is going to be in Cancer. Until the 30th, Jupiter is going to be in Cancer. Now they're connecting on the 9th specifically. This can be a beautiful blessing for you financially, Gemini. So this can increase your income. This can bring about good news financially. This can bring a financial gift towards you. And you will find yourself more financially motivated in the second half of the month with the sun entering Cancer on the 21st. However, Mercury is going to be in Cancer from the 1st for about 2 months. And because Mercury is your ruler and Mercury is going retrograde, your mind is going to be very much on your money for the time being. So Mercury going retrograde on the 29th, Gemini, this is about reflection and review when it comes to your financial situation. From the 29th of June to the 23rd of July, I wouldn't invest heavily in anything new. And I wouldn't sign on the dotted line financially with a contract, any kind of financial contract. It will be up for review later if you do. And you may miss important details and you might not have the clearest terms in the world. And financial matters such as sales, can fall through during that time. So be mindful of that. First half of the month, we do see a lot of financial blessings with Venus and Jupiter, absolutely. But astrology, ever the nuance, Mercury retrograde brings review and reflection with your financial situation a bit later. And I would hold off investing too heavily in anything new. Your usual expenditures, normal enough. Mercury retrograde doesn't have to affect those, although you could find that if you review what you're spending your money on, Gemini, you could be a little bit shocked and you might want to change a few things. You could have some subscriptions still going out of your account that you weren't aware of. Mercury retrograde in the second is a great time to go through your bank statements, great time to do a financial audit, and great time to reflect generally on how you are spending money, relating to money, earning money. And you could actually find an old idea comes up that is financial. And perhaps you're also revisiting an old talent and you're thinking, is this maybe something I could monetize? That could be true for a few of you. So, financially speaking, Gemini, there can be great blessings this month. There's also a bit of review going on. Now, Mars is going through the 12th house for you until the 20th when Mars goes into your sign. So, until the 20th, Mars going through the 12th house. This can bring a bit of disruptive energy to your sleep. It can bring nightmares. It can be a time where you feel triggered and you don't know why. You can be picking up other people's angry energy. You can be dealing with angry energy from the past. Past resentments can come up for review. You could feel a little bit triggered by things other people are doing and you don't quite know why. Mars can really help you, though, get to the root of a problem, get to the root of your unconscious. It can really help you clear out some stuff that you need to let go of, deal with past resentments. And what's interesting, Gemini, is that Chiron is actually entering this sector for the first time in about 50 odd years. So maybe you've seen it before, maybe it's your Chiron return, maybe you've not dealt with this energy before. But Chiron going through the 12th house can be about exploring your spiritual wounding, your subconscious wounding. It can be a great healing journey where you get to grips with the past. You feel more of a desire to heal the past, to look into your dreams. So do pay attention to nightmares this month, Gemini. They can be very revealing if you have bad dreams. Jot your dreams down. And if you have an intuitive sense also that maybe a friend or someone who's in your social circle does not have your best interests at heart or is leaking your private information, trust that hunch because you could very well be right, Gemini. Be careful who you share your secrets with. With Saturn being in the 11th house and Mars being in the 12th, could bring a bit of difficulty to your friendship sector. And you might decide to distance yourself from a friend or a social connection, or you might realize that they're leaking information about you. Or it could even be that a friend shares secret information with you this month, Gemini. And for some of you, it could be a little disturbing. It could worry you. Or it could perhaps be something that, upon reflection, you realize you need to deal with something similar, or you have a similar fear or phobia. That can also be coming up to Gemini. And speaking of fears and phobias, we have a full moon on the 28th, the 29th rather, in your 8th house. And when we have a full moon in the 8th house, this can be a time where we want to change things. We want to make transformations, and usually it starts from within. The dispositor Saturn is in your 11th house. As I said before, that is your friendship, that is your social groups, that is your social life, social connections, groups, teams that you're a part of. A lot of you, generally, with Saturn now in the 11th, you're refining this sector. You're realizing less is more in terms of friendship. You're realizing that in order to have a friend, you have to be a friend. You're learning discernment, but also devotion when it comes to friendships and social connections. And this full moon is highlighting that through the lens of personal transformation. So for some of you, you could be experiencing changes in your friendships and your social groups. For others of you, this can be about highlighting financial matters pertaining to a group or a team, or it can reveal challenging dynamics within a group or a team. But full moons in the 8th can definitely be felt in terms of shadow work. So if you're experiencing difficulties within groups, with friends, with social connections, you might notice under this full moon what previous traumas you have there, what patterns you have there, or what it is that you want to change, what you want from your social connections and your friendships. As I said, also, it can bring up matters about financial situations with a partner, money that you receive through the government, taxes. It can also be about inheritance, your spouse's money, your partner's money. And it can also maybe bring up some fears about the future, Gemini. So be mindful of that. It can be very revealing as to what is going on within you. That is what I have for you, Gemini. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi, Cancer. Welcome to your horoscope for June 2026. And if you're celebrating your birthday as a Cancer sun, if you're watching this for your sun sign in the month of June, a very happy birthday to you. But whether you're a Cancer sun, Cancer moon, a Cancer rising, you may find that there is something to like about June. There's going to be a Venus-Jupiter meetup in your sign. You had one of these last year in, I believe, August. You're getting a second one. And when the two benefics meet up, it tends to be very fortunate. And to have them in your sign can be absolutely wonderful for you, Cancer, especially if you have placements at 24, 25, 26 degrees of Cancer. You can really feel this. But generally, having this co-presence of Venus and Jupiter in your sign can feel really nice, can feel really lucky. There can be opportunities. People want to know you, people want to be around you, people are interested in you. You could attract more romantic opportunities. You could have an absolute glow up, get a haircut that really suits you, find new clothes that really suit you. Venus is in your first house until the 13th. You can receive more gifts, find the right clothing, find the right style, be pursued romantically if you're looking for that. It can be that you feel your best as well and you look wonderful with Venus and Jupiter in the first house until the 13th. Jupiter is going to be in your first house still until the 30th. And if you are one of the Cancerians that maybe hasn't experienced the gift of Jupiter in the first house, maybe you haven't received the opportunities or the luck or the hope or the optimism that you wanted, sometimes the truth is with astrology is that it can be at the very last moment that the transit manifests. It depends how it affects your chart. But with Jupiter being activated by Venus, and then also the Sun entering Cancer on the 21st, Mercury being in Cancer all month and going retrograde, it can be that this is the month where those opportunities that you were hoping for come through, Cancer. You can absolutely be one of the luckier signs this month, if not the luckiest. But I caveat that by saying if you have a hard transit like Saturn going over the moon, or Saturn square the moon, or Saturn squaring your Venus, or Pluto going over the moon, or not the ascendant, that can't be, but a tough Pluto transit or a Saturn transit, it can be that you're maybe not feeling as lucky as some other Cancerians. It depends very much on your natal chart. But with a benefic energy going on in your first house, Cancer, even if you're going through a difficult time, there can be moments of bliss and happiness and hope and optimism and good luck this month, for sure. So I would say from the 1st of June to the 13th, you're probably at your luckiest. With Venus and Jupiter, they actually connect on the 9th of June, which is going to be a very lucky day for you. But first 13 days of the month, Cancer, real glow up energy. You could find that you walk into the room with this energy of optimism and hope, and people want to know you. People want to connect with you. Now, the Sun enters your sign on the 21st and brings more focus and spotlight onto you personally. Mercury is going to be in your sign all month, and actually for 2 months, Mercury is going to be in your sign. And Mercury is what you think about. So you're going to be thinking more about yourself, not in a narcissistic way or a self-centered way, maybe sometimes, but Mercury going retrograde in your first house is about reflecting and checking in with yourself and reconnecting with the self and how you show up as the main character in your life, how you want to approach life, how you want to think about yourself. You might actually catch yourself, Cancer, thinking certain thoughts and realizing, oh my gosh, this program has been running in my head about myself and I don't want to define myself that way anymore. Say you call yourself certain names in your head, or you're so hard on yourself, or you find yourself not speaking up for yourself at times, or tiptoeing around certain topics, or approaching it from the side to the point that nobody picks up what you're putting down. You're reflecting generally on your communication, your thoughts, the programming that is running in your mind, Cancer, and that may be no bad thing. I feel like I'm already picking up the Mercury retrograde energy of communication here, but it may not be a bad thing to reflect on how you are communicating not only with other people but with yourself, and to check in with your relationship to yourself and how you are showing up in life. Mercury does actually rule your third house of communication and the mind, with Virgo here. And it also rules your 12th house as the subconscious. So the thoughts from the past, patterns from the past, you could certainly realize that you have a certain way of speaking about yourself, talking about yourself that is maybe putting a spell over you that you don't want anymore. And you're effectively changing the narrative, Cancer, when it comes to yourself. Okay. Now, there is also a lot happening behind the scenes. So the sun is in your 12th house until the 21st when it enters your sign. But there's also a new moon in your 12th house on the 14th. The dispositor is Saturn in the 10th and it's in a square to the new moon. New moons in the 12th house are very private. Some of you could be beginning something new behind the scenes, keeping it private. I feel like for a lot of you, Cancers, it could be to do with your career, making moves in silence, especially if you feel blocked, limited, restricted professionally or with a certain goal. You could be beginning the steps of pursuing something new when it comes to your career, or maybe for some of you, quiet quitting and possibly starting to move away from a job or your career in some way. You could also be recognizing some self-sabotaging behaviors. 12th house is about self-undoing when it pertains to your career or your personal goals or your public image, even. Cancer. You could also recognize if you have any hidden enemies to do with your career in the workplace, if someone has maybe been not so helpful in your professional life, or you realize that you have been sabotaged or someone has been lying to you, you may discover that this month as well when it comes to your career. But a new moon in the 12th house of self-undoing, if you're holding yourself back professionally, if you have fears related to being seen, being witnessed, these may be coming up for review, Cancer. But this is about what suits you because Mercury will be in your first house, the dispositor of that new moon. And I think for a lot of you, this is going to be a month where you recognize if mentally you've been holding yourself back, if you have these ways of talking about yourself that aren't helpful, if you are putting these spells on yourself that are bringing about not so great results, you're going to perhaps break free of something like that. And especially when Mars enters your 12th house in the 28th and it starts building in its conjunction to Uranus, this is a bit of a rebellion internally for you, Cancer. You could have a complete breakthrough on something self-sabotaging, limiting, self-conscious, self-sabotage. It's an addiction you could break free from as well. It can also be that you discover a hidden enemy that you needed to know about. More often than not, though, the 12th house is the enemy within. And with it being the 12th house, I would also say just be Mars and Uranus connecting in the 12th house. This can be when things come out of nowhere. You learn that you have a rival at work. You learn that you have been passed over for a promotion that you deserved. You learn that you have a pattern pertaining to a parent. You learn something to do with a parent that you didn't know. A secret is revealed to you, and these all can all be things that actually set you free or set you in motion of something new, Cancer, something better for you. Don't forget you have Jupiter in your first house, really protecting you until the 30th. And it's not that once it leaves, you don't have any protection whatsoever. It's just that it looks as though if things are revealed to you from behind the scenes, Cancer, that you didn't know, I think it could be to your advantage in the long run. But with that building Mars Uranus conjunction, I'm encouraging caution to most people to be mindful of doing anything completely out of the blue and abrupt because it can cause accidents if you're being reckless, but it can also bring a sudden breakthrough that you needed. For you, it's in the 12th house of the subconscious, so it can be behind the scenes for sure. I just want to take a step back to the first of the month. There has been a full moon on the 31st of May, and although it's a May thing, it is being felt into early June. Full moon in the sixth house, representing your health, how you approach your health, how you approach your well-being. Jupiter, the dispositor, in your first house of self. In the first few days of June, take stock of your health, your well-being. It's a great time for a checkup. It's a great time for a doctor's appointment. It's a great time for a physical. It's a great time to check in with your body and see if you're nourishing yourself well, if you're getting the exercise that you need, if you're overdoing something or underdoing something. Great time to check in with yourself physically. Great time to check in with your wellness routines, your spiritual practices, mental health approach, that type of thing. Hi Leo, welcome to your horoscope for June 2026. So Leo, I have some good news for you this month, but it sort of comes a little bit later on in the month that I want to discuss. The two benefics, Venus and Jupiter, are going to be going into your sign in June, which is really quite auspicious. But I'm going to start at the start of June, of course. Now, I want to discuss the full moon in Sagittarius, which actually happened in the last day of May, but we will still feel the effects of that full moon unfold in the first 3 days of June to about the first week of June. Now, this full moon, it'll manifest differently for many of you, but to summarize it, it is putting a spotlight onto your children or matters about pregnancy, about birth, or it's putting the spotlight onto your love life, dating, romance, falling in love, beginning a relationship, ending a relationship. It can also put the spotlight onto what makes you happy, your creative hobbies, your passions, your joys and those types of things. But it is ruled by Jupiter in your 12th house. So there's also a mental health component here. It's about matters behind the scenes, private matters. So for some of you, this is about finding something that you really enjoy to do, you really love to do, but you do it privately or you do it alone. You're working on something you really love behind the scenes, or you're discovering something that you like to do that requires a bit of isolation or retreat from the world. For others of you, it can be that there's something coming up in a mental health perspective, maybe linked to birth or linked to postnatal matters or to do with your children. That can be highlighted for you at this time as well. Maybe some of you need some support from somebody medical or someone who's a healer when it comes to matters of pregnancy, birth, or children. 12th house rules mental health, you see, and Jupiter going through the 12th tends to be really auspicious when it comes to getting help for mental health or emotional well-being or even hospital treatment with the 12th house also. So maybe for some of you, this is to do with healing, maybe linked to birth, maybe linked to pregnancy, maybe linked to postnatal matters, or maybe just linked to children in general. Getting the support that you need, focusing on your well-being, or focusing on the well-being and health of a child. And for others of you, it can also be maybe about a romantic relationship unfolding behind the scenes. For whatever reason, you're keeping it private, you're keeping it secret. That can be something that is developing at the start of the month, Leo. Now, we have a lot of activity happening in a few different houses. So, where to begin, I'm not quite sure. I'm actually going to begin for you, Leo, when it comes to your professional life. So, Mars is going through your career sector. It's not just career, though, it's a sector of goals, it is the sector of your purpose, what you're putting your energy into. And for a lot of you, this can also be a place where you feel a bit frustrated or irritated. So you could be encountering some tension in the workplace. You could also be feeling more ambitious, or you could be feeling more driven to change things. You could be digging your heels in a little bit on a career matter, Leo, but definitely putting a lot more effort into your job or your career. But there can be some tension, maybe some frustrations with people that you work with, frustrations with bosses, and maybe frustrations or anger in your career with Mars there, but also channeling that energy into getting something moving, Leo. Now, Chiron is going to enter your 10th house from the 19th. Chiron hasn't been in Taurus for about 50 odd years. And when we have a Chiron transit anywhere in our chart, it represents our wounding that needs some healing. It's the wounded healer. And so in your career, you might be realizing that there are a few wounds that you need to heal. It could be surrounding visibility. It could be wounding surrounding being publicly perceived or your experiences in the public eye. It can be, in fact, I think to my knowledge, a lot of the Disney stars have Leo rising. So you might see more people discussing people who are Leo rising and in the public eye. That might be you, or it might be that you're in the spotlight for some reason in your job or you're in a leadership role, addressing wounding from that experience, or also healing your relationship with being seen, being visible, pursuing a goal, or maybe even stepping into the role of a healer. You could be qualifying as a nurse, a doctor, or you could be qualifying as a Reiki healer, or you could become known for being a healer in some capacity, maybe even in your corporate job, being the person who is just a healing presence, Leo. but certainly focusing on, I think this month addressing some wounding surrounding your career or your workplace or your approach to life, your approach to work, your work-home balance could be something that you're focusing on a little bit in May with Mars going through that sector. But do watch for arguments in the workplace with Mars going through the 10th house or just being frustrated with people that you work with or people at your job with that 10th house influence. Now, we also have a lot of activity happening in your 11th house. You are in a month where the sun is in the 11th house until the 21st of June. Uranus is now in the 11th house, and Mars is going to enter the 11th house on the 28th. And it builds in its conjunction to Uranus. So, what might this look like for you, Leo? Well, there's a new moon there on the 14th. So, this can bring about new friendships, new teams that you want to join, new communities that you want to join, possibly with a spiritual component or possibly linked to healing. It could be group therapy that you're joining because Mercury will be in the 12th house. So for some of you, this is about connecting with a group of people to work through maybe a mental health issue or an addiction, or for some of you, it could also be connecting with a group of people who are spiritually minded, who are healers, or spending time in some sort of group setting where there's an element of privacy or there's an element of working behind the scenes with people with that new moon. It can definitely bring in new friends. It can also be a time where you maybe address some self-sabotaging behaviors in terms of social connections or where you hold yourself back from socializing with other people. It can also be with Mercury being in the 12th house. Maybe for some of you, this is a new chapter of moving away from a friendship or a group of people, Leo, if it's not serving you anymore, you feel it's become unhealthy. And generally speaking, this month, Leo, you're going to be reviewing what is and is not healthy for you. With Mars going into the 11th house from the 20th and building in its conjunction to Uranus, there can definitely be unexpected curveballs when it comes to your friends, when it comes to your communities, places that you have a membership, places where you socialize with a group of people. There could be a shock coming up when it comes to a friend or a team member or dynamic shifting within a team. There could be unexpected hostility from a friend or a team member, or in a group setting. Say you're a member of a golf club, there could be something rather unexpected happens, but that's more so early July, specifically the 4th. But this energy is building. So be careful if you feel tension building in a group with a team or with a friend. It's likely going to come to a head around the 4th of July. And it's always worth exercising caution with a Mars Uranus conjunction because it can be quite volatile and it can escalate quite quickly. So just be mindful of that. How you approach a situation, how you handle a situation can make all the difference. That's the free will part of astrology. And also, maybe if you're feeling tension building within a relationship, particularly a friendship or a group, maybe address it while there are more harmonious transits, such as Venus connecting with Jupiter on the 9th. So, as you can see, new beginnings happening in your 11th house with a group, with a team. Maybe you're joining a new team. A little bit of frustration in your career. But there's also a lot happening behind the scenes for you, Leo. So, for the first 13 days of the month, Venus is going to be in Cancer, and Jupiter is also going to be in Cancer until the 30th. The Sun is going to be in Cancer from the 21st. Mercury is going to be there all month and go retrograde on the 29th, which means that Mercury is going to be in your 12th house for 2 months. Now, Mercury is about what you think about. And as I mentioned before, that full moon that we're feeling at the beginning of June from May, the dispositor was Jupiter in your 12th house. Mental health wise, Leo, or even spiritual health. I think a lot of you are going to be reflecting on spiritual health, mental health, and emotional well-being and how you approach it. I could see a lot of you maybe talking about things from the past that you buried or you were scared to discuss or worried about talking about, maybe discussing them with a therapist, maybe discussing them with a friend, a close friend, a confidant, or just reflecting on your own emotional patterns, maybe experiences that were hard for you. You're probably thinking more about your dreams. You're probably thinking more about your spiritual connection to the world, your spiritual perspectives. You're probably thinking more about how you get in your own way or sabotage yourself. But Mercury retrograde in the 12th does tend to be a time where you dream of people from the past, you dream of past experiences, you maybe hear news about people from the past that triggers you, and you realize you've some healing to do. And more commonly than not, Leo, Jupiter going through the 12th house is a transit that is, it's wrapping up this month. But Jupiter's been there for the last year, and oftentimes this is a transit where people do learn a lot more about mental health and emotional health and tend to get the right therapist or get the right support. So there is a lot happening behind the scenes, Leo, where you could definitely be finding yourself healing at this time. And it feels as though it's quite supportive, to have both benefics there. For some of you, this could also be about traveling to foreign lands. It could be about taking retreats, taking vacations, taking some time out of the spotlight, taking time to recharge, and really discovering a lot of beauty and a lot of blessings behind the scenes and in private. Wanting to experience privacy with the things that you're enjoying, not necessarily wanting to put them in the spotlight, because you may feel that, Leo, anything you put in the spotlight can generate maybe a bit of envy or a bit of a harsh reaction, or people could be annoyed at what you post online, for example. And you might think, actually, I'm having a lot more fun doing this behind the scenes or keeping my blessings private. That might be something that you're feeling this month as well. But do pay attention to your dreams with that Mercury retrograde in the 12th house. They're going to be very loud, especially especially when it comes rather to family matters and matters from the past, Leo. Now, as I said, Venus and Jupiter, the benefics, are entering your sign this month, and this is quite a contrast. Uh, Venus enters your sign in the 13th. This is when you are a magnet to blessings. And you'll be feeling this into July. People want to give you stuff. You get stuff for free. You get a lot of compliments. You go to the right hairdresser, you buy the right clothes, your outfits come together, your makeup sits better. It just tends to be a time where you look your best, and oftentimes you feel your best too, with Venus going through your first house. Jupiter enters that sector on the 30th. So in July, you're going to have both Venus and Jupiter in your first, and you can absolutely be a magnet for blessings. And you can be more confident in being seen at this point, Leo. Why? Because Venus rules your 10th. Showing up as you are, being confident in who you are, being confident in showcasing yourself. You might feel like you're starting to come back into the world. You're starting to feel maybe a bit more social, a bit less low key with Venus and Jupiter entering your sign going into July, but you are still thinking about mental health and privacy and behind the scenes work. Mercury retrograde in the 12th house, sometimes people can slip up and tell you something that you didn't want to know or you didn't expect. People can unexpectedly share secrets with you that can be very revealing, Leo, and you might find that some of this changes the way that you think about other people also. Now, we have a full moon in your sixth house towards the end of the month on the 29th, and the full moon in the sixth house is about taking stock of your health and your well-being, Leo. And for some of you, this seems to be linked to travel. It can also be about your job. So around the full moon on the 29th, give or take a week before and a week after going into July, there can be changes with your job. There can be changes with what you do for work. For some of you, this is changing jobs. It's in a square to Saturn, and Saturn is the dispositor, and Saturn is not so strong in Aries, and it's in the ninth. So some of you may find that in order to get a certain role or make a job change, you have to study for something, or you have to put in extra effort to get a certain kind of education, or you have to travel for work, or there are some complications with, say, you work in an office and you have an office that is abroad. There could be some time difference issues, or could be some miscommunication, particularly with Mercury retrograde in the 12th, language barriers. So make sure to double check everything around the time of that full moon. And there could be some frustrations with your job as well and who's doing what. When it comes to your health, Leo, you might find that if you've been traveling at this time, if you are traveling this time, With Mercury retrograde, it could be a little stressful and you could notice some effects on your health. So, post-flight flu could be something you experience if you are traveling around this time, catching a bug while you travel or feeling a bit under the weather, but you have to make a trip, or being more mindful about your own beliefs when it comes to work, when it comes to routines, when it comes to how you take care of your health and well-being, Leo, as well. And I do think for a lot of you, considering the sun is in your 12th house, I think many Leo risings could be considering how they look after themselves in a mind, body, and soul, from a mind, body, and soul perspective. That's what I have for you, Leo. I hope you have a wonderful month and I'll talk to you soon. Virgo, welcome to your horoscope for June 2026. So, Virgo, I'm going to begin with the full moon that actually happened on the last day of May. Why am I including it in this horoscope? Because the effects of the full moon will still be felt in the 3 days after the full moon to the week after. So, that's really looking at the first week of June. Matters may be coming up pertaining to home, pertaining to family, pertaining to your living situation. And for a lot of you, this could actually be quite a fortunate change. So you might find, if you're looking to move, you might find the ideal property that you really wanted. Why? Because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer in your 11th house. The 11th house is about manifestation and wishes coming true, but it also brings a sense of community and social connection. So you might find a property you want to move to that is near maybe a club that you're a part of, somewhere you have a membership, somewhere you have great social connections or social opportunities. For some of you, it could be that you're moving in with friends. For others of you, it could be that you're not moving at all. It's just that you are getting the renovations that you wanted, the design that you wanted is going well if you're making changes to your home. Or for some of you, it could also be a really lovely get together with family, maybe a house party or having friends over to your house, even as well. Great social element connected to this full moon in Sagittarius for you, Virgo. And opposite the full moon is, of course, the sun in Gemini, and that's happening in your 10th house. So this is a very public zone. It's about career, it's about purpose, it's about your goals. And the sun is going to be in Gemini until the 21st, and we have a new moon there on the 14th. And that new moon is ruled by Mercury in Cancer. So that new moon around the 14th, give or take the week before, the week after, Virgo, there could be a new professional opportunity comes up. This could be a new job for some of you. This could be a promotion. This could be a new string to your bow when it comes to your career. This could be about setting the intention of what you want in your career, in your professional life, publicly. And I feel for a lot of you that you could be getting involved with a team of people, or an opportunity could come from a friend or a social connection that helps you begin a new chapter professionally, Virgo. The one thing that I've been saying to you since Uranus entered Gemini is not to limit yourself, because you can absolutely find great innovation and unexpected opportunities and twists and turns when it comes to your career. And Uranus likes freedom. Now, you have a Gemini midheaven, so things like writing, communication, social media tend to come up in your career. And with Uranus there, this can be about moving maybe with technological advancements, maybe, maybe not. It can simply be about getting out of your comfort zone and experiencing something very different to what you've done before. So maybe an opportunity comes up that is quite different, or an opportunity comes up unexpectedly, Virgo, for you professionally. But again, I do feel like it may come through a friend, it may come through social media, it might require you to work as a new team, or it might be that you are trying something very different to what you've done before. You don't have to, though, and it might actually be for some of you, by complete contrast to that, it can actually be something that you have done before, and I'll tell you why. Mercury is the dispositor of that new moon. Mercury is also your ruling planet. Mercury is going to be in the sign of Cancer for 2 months. From the 1st of June, Mercury is going to enter Cancer, but it's going to go retrograde on the 29th, which actually means, from a personal perspective and a career perspective, you might hear from people you've worked with before, people you know socially, people from the past that you've not connected with in a while that have an opportunity for you. You might reconnect with old friends, you might reconnect with a team that you used to work with, or you might find yourself maybe trying something new, but in somewhere you used to work or the same domain, but it's different in some way, or your approach is different, Virgo. With your 11th house being activated here quite a lot in July, there is also a lot of good fortune, Virgo, but you might like to hear, despite your ruler going retrograde and Mercury answering to the South Node in your first house, which for some of you, with the eclipses there in the South Node, you could have been going through personal challenges pertaining to health, pertaining to your physical health, wellness, or your relationship to yourself has been going through a lot of change with the South Node. And at its essence, you've reconnected with yourself. You've maybe changed your relationship to your body, to your health, how you take care of yourself, Virgo. And now you're sort of reflecting on what you want to manifest, what you want your future to look like. The Sun enters your 11th house on the 21st, and Venus is going to be there until the 13th. Jupiter is going to be there until the 30th. Jupiter and Venus are the two benefics in astrology. They connect on the 9th. There can be a really lucky social opportunity, a really great party, really great social event. You can meet the right people. You can mingle with the right people. You could receive a lot of graciousness and good fortune through friends, through teams that you're a part of, through your social network. And you might find your soul tribe at this time. You know, Virgo, for a lot of you, Jupiter has been blessing your 11th house since last year, since June for the last year. So this could have connected you with like-minded people, with the right teams, with the right memberships, the right communities that really enriched your life and maybe brought you a lot of growth. And that's very much highlighted in the first 13 days of June, thanks to Venus. So you can find a lot of great social connections. The 11th house can also be online, so you can connect with someone online for those of you looking for love. Or it can be that you meet like-minded people online, great friends. But there's also a sense with Mercury retrograde from the 28th, that or 29th rather, that you're reflecting generally on your social connections and your groups and your teams and how they're doing, how you're communicating with these people, how they're communicating with you. There can be some misunderstandings with friends or misunderstandings pertaining to the terms of a team or a membership. Be careful of signing on the dotted line for anything from the 29th of June to the 23rd of July, but especially when it comes to memberships. And also review your subscriptions and your memberships, Virgo. You might still be signed up to something you didn't realize, and you might want to cancel it with Mercury retrograde through the 11th house as well. If you're making plans with friends, as you likely will this month, there can be great times with friends. If you're making plans with friends, they may need to be, if they are after the 29th, they may need to be um postponed or rearranged, or there could be some issues with someone being late or something not quite going the way that you anticipated. Try to offer a bit of flexibility and grace with that. Other things happening this month. Venus is entering your 12th house on the 13th. Jupiter is entering your 12th house on the 30th. Jupiter going through the 12th house. This can be about keeping your love affairs private or behind the scenes. This can be about secret crushes. This can be about healing past wounding when it comes to love and when it comes to relationships, Virgo. But it can connect you with soulmates and like-minded people, which does seem to be a theme of your month, connecting with like-minded people and soul family and soul tribe. Now, Jupiter going into the 12th house from the 30th, a lot of people sort of feel that this sounds a little bit lackluster, but it absolutely doesn't have to be. Jupiter transiting the 12th house tends to be where someone finds a lot of growth and a lot of joy in their alone time. Now, the 12th house does represent periods of isolation, but it doesn't have to be lonely. And it doesn't have to be that you're in this year-long period of spending every moment by yourself. It's not that. But it's that you're more drawn to taking a retreat. And Virgo is the sign of the hermit in the tarot. So this might be a time when you think, I'd really like to take a solo trip, or I would really like to go on this retreat, or I would really like to go to this foreign land that is so very different to where I am and explore. And you find great joy and great growth through these things. You maybe find that you're with Jupiter ruling the fourth, maybe you're spending a lot of time in a home abroad. Maybe you're considering getting a home abroad, or you're living abroad for a year or for some time, and you're just exploring very different terrain to what you're used to, Virgo. This is also a great time for spiritual growth. You can really find amazing psychics, amazing mystics, amazing tarot readers during this time. You can get great spiritual guidance. You can feel divinely led. You can also feel divinely protected, as if someone is looking out for you behind the scenes. And it can also be a time where if you're looking to work through something on a mental health perspective, which I think it's going to be something that a lot of Virgos are looking into, especially when the South Node enters Leo in July. I think a lot of you can find a wonderful therapist that helps you clear some psychological debris from the past and really helps you heal spiritually. But no, it doesn't have to be a lonely year. I think for a lot of you, this can be a time where you're just simply enjoying time alone from time to time, or you feel like a lot of your blessings are happening behind the scenes, or you just want to keep them private. There's a full moon on the 29th of June, and for you, it's happening in your fifth house, Virgo. Full moons in the fifth house tend to coincide with bigger events pertaining to your children. There can be something going on with one of your children if you have them. For those of you that are experiencing changes with your children, or there's something going on in their life, this can sort of peak around this time. They can tell you something, especially if they're maybe going through a challenge or they feel very emotionally affected by something, Virgo. They may be sharing that with you at this time. For some of you, it can also be about pregnancies, births. For others of you, it can be about your love life. Full moons in the fifth house can be where you fall in love, or there's a love interest at the forefront of your mind. This can be where you are discovering a new passion or a new hobby, Virgo. But there's a caveat to this. Saturn is in the eighth house in Aries, and it's squaring this full moon. It's also the dispositor of this full moon. And the eighth house is about transformation. So for some of you, with the eighth house, fifth house connection, this can really put a spotlight on how you feel about your intimate relationships, how you feel about being vulnerable with someone else. If you're finding the full moon is opening you up to dating, you can feel maybe a little bit hesitant, or you're noticing some fears relating to dating or romance or opening up to somebody new. It can also be that if there's something coming up with your children, it could be that they're discussing a challenge in their life or a fear that they're having, or there could be discussions about financial matters with children, inheritances, taxes, those types of things can be highlighted around the time of this full moon as well. Squares from Saturn, they can feel a little bit self-conscious or a little bit inhibiting, but they tend to be important to know, especially with a square from Saturn in the eighth house. The eighth house pertains to fear, transformation. It's the house of death and rebirth. So with Saturn going through your eighth house of Virgo and the South Node going through your first house, I think a lot of you are really putting your mind to what it is that you want to change and what fears you need to face in order to have a better quality of life. And for some of you, you may need to face some fears when it comes to dating or romance, or when it comes to your children, or when it comes to your creative expression, your hobbies, your passions, what makes you happy. For some of you, this is really looking like art therapy to me. Finding great therapy in a passion or a hobby that you have, and maybe conquering a limitation related to that hobby. Fear of getting it wrong or needing it to be perfect, or what is the point of doing it if I can't use it as work, or something like that, something holding you back from just enjoying doing the hobby, doing the thing, or expressing yourself. So that's what I have for you, Virgo. I hope you have a great month, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hi, Libra. Welcome to your horoscope for June 2026. So, Libra, I'm going to start with the full moon that happened on the 31st of May because the effects of that full moon will still be felt in the first 3 to 7 days of the month. Now, that full moon for you is happening in the third house. And so this can bring important news, communication, delivery of news, information that you need. It can bring it all to the fore. With Jupiter being in the 10th house, Libra, this can be news pertaining to your work, pertaining to your job, pertaining to your career. So there could be something about your career that requires you to write. There could be something that requires you to publish something online, to put something on social media. You could be receiving news of an interview for a job. You could be redoing your CV, or you could be receiving important communication about the workplace, about your career, or even from a parent. So keep your phone fully charged. In the first week of June, you could absolutely be receiving important communication, either about your career, about a parent, or about a goal that you are looking to work on. The third house can also bring up matters pertaining to siblings, pertaining to neighbors, pertaining to cousins. And it can also bring up opportunities to go on a course, to learn something new, or to study something new, Libra. Now, the sun will be in your ninth house until the 21st, highlighting matters of travel and higher education. There's a new moon there on the 14th. So, for some of you, Libra, you might be wanting to take a course or get a degree or get a certification to enhance your career because Mercury, the dispositor, is in the 10th house. And Mercury is actually in your 10th house from the 1st of June for 2 months. So it looks, Libra, like you're thinking a lot about your status, your reputation, your public image, your career, what you want to do next, or what you want to bring back, or what you want to go back to. Thinking a lot about your work, your purpose, your career, how you're seen, your public image. And that new moon might require you to study something or get that certification or to travel for work or to look further afield for a job or to relocate for work. You might be considering studying, moving, relocation for your job or for your future. A new moon in the ninth house tends to bring about the desire to learn something new. For some of you, it is going to college or university. For some of you, it is traveling. Maybe you're wanting to travel somewhere new. The sun going through the ninth house can absolutely be a time where travel is on your mind, research is on your mind, learning is on your mind. And with Uranus now in your ninth house, you might be wanting to learn something that is a bit alternative, a bit surprising to other people, or you're really wanting to learn about different topics that are considered unusual relative to your situation. Now, Mars is going to enter the ninth house for you on the 29th or the 28th. And Mars is building in its conjunction to Uranus. So there can be a lot of heated discussions about religion, spirituality, politics. You can argue with a teacher or a mentor. You might also be receiving a teacher or a mentor linked to your career or your job, but there can be tension building there. There can be some heated discussions about your beliefs. There can be heated discussions about foreign affairs as well. For some of you, this can also be about getting a new passport or a visa and really having to push that forward for some reason. Maybe you feel in a rush to get something sorted for traveling, or there's a lot of tension in getting something that you need to travel or relocate with Mars connecting with Uranus. You will feel that most intensely the 4th of July, but you will feel it building, Libra, until then. Until the 28th, though, Mars is going through your eighth house, and Chiron actually enters your eighth house on the 19th. So there can be disagreements about money. There can be disagreements about loans, mortgages, inheritances, pushing forward to get your taxes through, putting a lot of energy into your joint financial matters, getting your financial affairs in order, but it can be a source of tension. It can be a source of irritation and frustration. And if you have a spouse or you're connected to somebody else financially, there can be moments of tension or arguments or disagreements pertaining to joint financial matters. Mars going through the eighth house, I have noticed, can be a time where one has to face a fear or a phobia. So if you were scared of bugs, but you really want to garden with Mars and Taurus, you might find yourself out in the garden more getting exposure therapy. I often find Mars going through the eighth house as a time where people lean into facing a fear or a phobia because they are driven to overcome it. And with Chiron in the eighth house, you can be addressing wounding surrounding intimate relationships or joint financial matters, really looking to bring a little bit of healing into that area, healing into your marriage, healing into your financial affairs, healing when it comes to debt, or healing when it comes to shadow work. Maybe you're wanting to face something head on that you have been avoiding for a while, Libra. That may or may not apply to you. We also have room for blessing in your 10th house. Mercury is going to be there for 2 months, as I said, because of the retrograde. So your mind is very much on your career, your public image. And Venus is going to be there until the 13th. Jupiter is going to be there until the 30th in your 10th house of career. Great time in early June from around the 1st to the 13th to be noticed professionally, to have some kind of professional advancement, a positive development in your career, positive social events happening in your career. Maybe you're going to a gala or you're going to an awards ceremony or you're being recognized for the work that you do. Maybe you're getting a bit of fame or recognition, Libra, for some of you. Venus is your chart ruler. Maybe you're being recognized for your work. Maybe you're being publicly recognized, or maybe around the 9th of June, you get your 5 minutes of fame or something. Maybe you're just in the right place at the right time. With Jupiter being in your 10th house for most of June and it being activated by Mercury, the Sun being there, Venus being there until the 13th, this could be an important month to enhance your career, for opportunities, for growth, for feeling more optimistic, and maybe setting your sights on your long-term strategy. And maybe with Mercury retrograde, you need to reconnect with someone from the past, or you need to rethink your approach, or you need to pick up an old project. Mercury retrograde can also bring miscommunication with bosses or with people in positions of authority. So be mindful of that, Libra. Venus is going to be going through your 11th house from the 13th. Lovely social energy. Getting on better with friends, spending time with friends, more invitations out, more invitations to socialize, getting together with people and having a roaring time with Venus and Leo. And generally feeling more social. Venus is your ruler, so you may be feeling like you want to connect with friends. You could be reaching out to people, you could be networking. Jupiter is going to enter that sector on the 30th, Libra. And although this is the last day of June, so you'll be feeling this more in July and for the next year, it's worth noting that this can be a wonderful year for you in terms of social activity. You can join groups that you really enjoy, meet friends that you really love, connect deeper with friendships. Wishes can come true when Jupiter goes through the 11th. You can find that you just simply feel more optimistic about the future. You attract more opportunities to you. You get to meet people from all walks of life that really enhance and expand your experience, Libra. So that can be a very enjoyable year for you. And particularly going into July, you might have some really great social opportunities and events to attend. That being said, with Mercury retrograde, you might have some career matters that are pulling you away from the social activity, at least for a while. But it can absolutely be a time where you really feel positive about what's happening for you socially. Now, there's a full moon in your fourth house on the 29th, and this full moon is quite testing, a Libra. So it's happening in your fourth house of home, family, your living situation. And it's in the sign of Capricorn. So this can be about your foundations, the structures of your home, the parent-child relationship. It can be about your parents. It's in a square to Saturn, and Saturn is the dispositor. And Saturn's obviously in Aries at the moment in your seventh house. This can be quite testing for a relationship in your life. The full moon can highlight the need for boundaries, the need for a bit of space,
The need for rules, even in a key relationship in your life, could be a family member, could be a partner, could be between them. There could be tension between a family member and your partner, or you could feel as though your living situation is maybe restricting you from meeting a partner, or you could feel as though your family maybe don't approve of a relationship choice. Or you could be deciding whether or not you are going to move in with somebody or move to be with someone. It feels as though there's tension between your home, your living situation, your family, and a partner or prospective partner. It can also highlight legal matters pertaining to home that are a bit frustrating or maybe a bit slower than you wanted them to be. Maybe some discussions about physical barriers, fences surrounding a property, who owns what land. There could be legal matters coming up to your property. But I think for most of you, Libra, this is going to highlight your living situation with a partnership. Maybe the give and take in a home with chores, who does what, who pays for what. These different matters can be highlighted. And it could be just a 2 week period where there is a little bit of tension surrounding your home or living situation. But it feels more so that it's not necessarily tension in a Mars sense, although, Mars does rule your seventh house. It feels more tension as in you feel restricted, or you feel like something's quite heavy, or you feel like something's quite serious, or you just maybe feel with the full moon in Capricorn a little bit more pessimistic about a living arrangement or getting the ball rolling on a property matter. You could maybe bring something into the home that you think is really beautiful and your partner hates it. And you're really frustrated that you have to decide whether you're going to take it back or who gets their way kind of thing. It can, depending on how it's hitting your chart, it can range as very small to very significant for each of you. If you do have any natal placements at, uh, I would say about 13 to 16 degrees of Capricorn or Aries, you could definitely be noticing that this little bit more, Libra. But don't let it dull your sparkle too much. You will have Venus in your 11th house and you will still likely be the belle of the ball. That is what I have for you, Libra, and I will talk to you soon. Hi, Scorpio. Welcome to your horoscope for June 2026. So, Scorpio, we're going to start off with the beginning of the month. The end of May and the 31st, there was a full moon in Sagittarius, and the effects of that full moon will still be felt in the first 3 days to the first week of June. Now, for you, Scorpio, this is highlighting your finances, your money. And so, around the time of this full moon, maybe you are getting paid for something, you're receiving money, or you're spending money, you're investing money into something. For a lot of you, because Jupiter, the dispositor, is in the ninth, you could be putting your money into education, to a degree, to a diploma. You could be putting your money into traveling, investing in a trip, taking a trip, or perhaps you're starting to make money from teaching, sharing your knowledge, putting a course out onto the internet. Perhaps you're receiving money from sharing your knowledge, sharing your wisdom, or sharing your education, Scorpio. So, for some of you, spending money on travel, maybe in some way, shape, or form, you could also be making money through travel, Scorpio, or investing money into your education or receiving money from something that you're teaching. Or perhaps it can be, Scorpio, as well, that you're learning about money. You're wanting to expand your knowledge about the financial system or how to make money, how to maximize your money with Jupiter being there, or even taking a spiritual approach on manifesting money or um, attracting more abundance into your life, Scorpio. Now, let's start with the Taurus energy this month because this is quite interesting, Scorpio. Obviously, Uranus is no longer in your seventh house in the whole sign system. Mars is going to be in your seventh house of relationships until the 28th. Chiron enters your seventh house of relationships on the 19th. So we have some interesting energy playing out together here, Scorpio. Mars in the seventh can bring a bit of tension when it comes to relationships. You could find yourself being a little bit more short-tempered with your partner, or they more short-tempered with you. There could be a bit more conflict in your personal relationships. There could be a little bit more tension, more prone to disagreements. It can also be with Mars going through the seventh house that you are going through something legally. Maybe for some of you, there's a legal battle playing out. And this could be a month where it really comes to the fore, thanks to Mars being there, Scorpio. You could also be competing with somebody, as the seventh house rules are competitors. So you could be competing with someone for something else, maybe for a prize, maybe in something athletic, I think, because Mars rules your sixth. So maybe you're doing a high rocks competition. Maybe you're playing in a tennis tournament. Whatever the case may be, Scorpio, you could certainly be feeling more competitive indeed. Now, Chiron entering that sector is going to be a very new energy for most of you because Chiron has a 50 odd year transit. So, with Chiron going through the seventh house, this can be a time where you decide to heal your wounding when it comes to relationships and healing the way that you connect with other people. It can also be that you attract people who are healers. You know, you can get into a relationship if you're single with someone who is a healer of some kind, whether that be in a traditional sense or not. But it can be a time when you start to realize that you have some wounding surrounding connections and partnerships and relationships that you do start to work through. So you might be feeling this calling to work through some relationship wounding, or you might also notice, Scorpio, that you become the person, if you're not already, that people go to for relationship advice, with Chiron going through the seventh house. But yes, there can be a bit more tension in your connections this month. By contrast, for some of you, you can also feel really called to pursue somebody. If you're interested in someone, if you want to have a relationship with someone, whether you want them as a client, whether you want them as a romantic partner, whether you want them as a best friend, you might well be going after them with Mars going through Taurus. You may well be the bold one making the first move. Now, the sun is going to be going through your eighth house until the 21st, and we have a new moon there on the 14th. And then your traditional ruler Mars is going to enter there on the 29th. So we have a lot of eighth house activity, Scorpio. And the eighth house, as you know, the eighth house is the house that you rule in astrology. It's about transformation, it's about depth. And with so much activity happening there, perhaps for some of you, you're exploring more of an interest in psychology, more of an interest in something taboo, maybe even more of an interest in the paranormal. But you could definitely be exploring topics that are shadowy and dark and transformative. And you could be doing quite a lot of shadow work this time around Scorpio. With the new moon being there on the 14th, there can be a new beginning pertaining to joint financial relationships. So maybe there is a new beginning when it comes to the money that you and a spouse share, or the property you and your family share, or there is some kind of new beginning when it comes to joint financial endeavors. And this could be because of something you're experiencing legally, Scorpio. The dispositor Mercury will be in the ninth house, and then obviously you've Mars in the seventh. These are the two legal houses. So maybe for some of you, there is going to be a decision made pertaining to legal matters. For some of you, this can also be if you have a fear or a phobia of traveling or of even going back to school, if you have these limitations, Scorpio, going on when it comes to higher education, when it comes to traveling, vacations, this new moon might be the time you start to work through that fear, believe it or not, because the new moons in the eighth house can be about tackling a fear or a pattern that is holding you back. And with Mercury in the ninth, that could be about exploring. But I do think for a lot of you, there could be something going on with legal matters and something needing to be addressed when it comes to a legal issue. Obviously, that will only be for a few of you. For others of you, this can be to do with shadow work, also linked to your spiritual beliefs or your religious beliefs. Some of you could also be absolutely transforming your spiritual or religious beliefs. Maybe you're changing, even for some of you, your religious perspectives. And one thing that will become quite clear, Scorpio, is that there could be some disagreements or arguments or tensions, or even unexpected tension when it comes to joint financial matters, such as inheritance or such as taxes or government, the money that you receive from the government. there could be something building there because Mars is going to enter this sector on the 28th. And where Mars goes, there tends to be a bit of tension, but also a bit of action and a bit of conflict. It's building in a conjunction to Uranus, so there can be an unexpected conflict pertaining to large sums of money, pertaining to inheritance, pertaining to financial arrangements between you and other people or you and an organization. But it can also be, with the eighth house, a eureka moment pertaining to a fear or a phobia or wanting to address a fear or a phobia. In fact, when I see people face a phobia or they address something through a shadow work perspective, it tends to come up with the eighth house. And with Mars and Uranus meeting there, this could be unexpectedly breaking free of an issue that has held you back for a very long time. I do think for some of you it could be to do with travel, but for others of you it could also be to do with education or religion or spirituality or something in the ninth house domain that you want to explore, but you have felt like you couldn't. You might actually find that you break free and explore it. Scorpio with June. Now, if we look at the ninth house, there's a lot happening there as well. As you can see, a lot of the planets are sort of hanging out in the one sector. But with the sun going into your ninth house on the 21st, Venus and Jupiter there, and Mercury this month, there's going to be a lot happening when it comes to foreign affairs. So for some of you, you could be traveling in June. It would surprise me if you weren't traveling somewhere or planning to travel somewhere, a Scorpio. If you're traveling around the ninth, you could have an absolutely beautiful experience. Venus is in your travel sector until the 13th. And because Jupiter and Venus will meet together on the ninth, you could find from the 1st to the 13th, especially with Mercury there as well, that traveling is just so much fun. Your experience in a foreign land could just be beautiful. You could fall in love. Some of you could be on a honeymoon. Some of you could be traveling with a significant other, and it's just the most wonderful experience. Some of you could be falling in love at university or college. You could really love what you're studying. Scorpio, you could really enjoy learning. This month, you'll love learning, you'll love traveling. But from the 29th, you might find it a little bit more tricky. And the reason for that is that Mercury goes retrograde on the 29th in the ninth house. So if you're traveling between the 29th, by contrast, to the earlier part of the month, if you're traveling between the 29th of June and the 23rd of July, there can be hiccups. Things can go skewiff with your travel plans. And it's not to say you shouldn't travel if you have a trip coming up. It's just that you have to bear in mind with Mercury retrograde, especially in the ninth house, that you could be more inclined to forget your passport, to not have filled out the right forms. You could forget your, you could forget to fill out a certain form or a certain paper that you need for immigration purposes, or you could find that you've left your passport at home, or you could find that you have booked the wrong dates, or you show up at the airport on the wrong day, or there's a lot of queues, there's a lot of delays, your luggage goes missing. Those type of things can happen with a Mercury retrograde. So it's wise to get insurance and it's wise to double check everything and take extra caution while traveling during that time. Now, that can also be a time, Scorpio, where you're reflecting generally on your beliefs. And for some of you, you could be revising for an exam. Mercury retrograde is actually great for revision if it's in the ninth house, revising for studying, revising for exams. I find as soon as I start discussing Mercury retrograde, my speech starts going. It's such a psychosomatic thing when discussing Mercury retrograde. But yeah, these are the type of things you can encounter. It can also be issues with languages, misinterpreting something that someone else says if there's a language barrier between you with Mercury retrograde in the ninth house. But certainly in the first part of the month, traveling looks beautiful. Mercury is going to be in the ninth house for the next 2 months, Scorpio. So I think for a lot of you, where your mind is going to be at is on your studies or on traveling or on visas or documentation or getting approval to travel to this place or waiting on news that you got this passport or renewing your passport, or this is where your mind is going to be. Travel matters, higher education, religious beliefs. There can be as well with Mercury retrograde in the ninth house some disagreement over spiritual or religious beliefs. So just be mindful, try to be respectful if someone has a different religious belief to yours or a different spiritual belief, or be aware that people might not be as respectful when discussing it. That can happen, and it's not always intentional. It's just that Mercury retrograde can bring misunderstandings and miscommunication, either from you or from someone else. Now, Scorpio, something that I think you're really gonna like because I find a lot of Scorpio risings with um, Leo 10th houses, Leo midheavens, are quite ambitious people. And you're gonna like this. Venus is going to be entering your 10th house from the 13th. And this is beautiful for your career, for your public image, for your public persona. You can be very well received at work, very well liked, very popular. If people are thinking of handing out promotions, they'll think of you. If you are in the public eye, this tends to be a time where you attract a lot of attention, good attention, compliments. Some of you could find love at work or through your career. And then Jupiter entering the sector on the 30th. You might not feel this part so much in June, of course, because it happens on the last day of the month, but Jupiter going through the 10th house for the next year, Scorpio, can really expand your public image, your career, your reputation. It can really bless these areas. It can make you more popular, but it can also just simply make you more visible. More people see you, more people want to see you. Promotions, opportunities to rise up in your career, or maybe opening your own business, or maybe pursuing a new path professionally that feels more aligned with you. And there being some financial benefit from it too, as well, because Jupiter is the ruler of your second house. So this can be financial improvements in your career or feeling more aligned with your purpose. And for some of you, Scorpio, as well, because the fifth house is ruled by Jupiter in your chart, you could be pursuing something professionally that's a lot of fun for you, that's a creative hobby, that's a passion. For some of you, that could be about opening a side hustle and being entrepreneurial and running your own business. So for a lot of you, there can be great blessings coming when it comes to your career, when it comes to your purpose. Sometimes Jupiter going through the 10th house as well can also improve your relationship to bosses, authority figures. You can meet famous people when Jupiter's going through the 10th house if you're interested in that. You can also find just generally that maybe you're getting on better with a parent, Scorpio, as well. Your relationship or understanding of a parent may improve with Jupiter going through the 10th house, but you can get a lot of fame and recognition, whether that be locally or to your small business, or whether that be in a grander scale. It depends on you, Scorpio, but there can certainly be blessings coming to your career, and you'll start to feel them from June. Now, we finish the month with a full moon in Capricorn, which is down here in your third house. And this one's a little tricky. It's in a square with Saturn in your sixth house, and Saturn is the dispositor of the full moon. So for some of you, you could have a conversation that it could be a conversation pertaining to your job, or it could be a conversation pertaining to your health, Scorpio, where you think, okay, I need to maybe work a little bit harder at this, or I need to set some limits, or I need to have some boundaries, whether with yourself or with another person. There could be challenges with a coworker, maybe with Saturn going through the sixth house. There could be challenges at work that are being communicated to you. Someone at your job might be communicating a frustration or something that they're struggling with. It could be that you're receiving news about your um, health. Maybe it's saying, hey, we've noticed that this is a little bit off. Can you try XYZ to rein it in a little bit? Or maybe take a little bit more care of your health, or watch your stress levels. Or, with the third house, sometimes it can be, especially in this modern age, sometimes it can be about having better limits with yourself, Scorpio, when it comes to the internet and social media and doom scrolling, and how much your physical body is actually responding and picking up from what you're seeing online or what you're reading or what you're hearing. So maybe having some boundaries in place with your internet usage, mental health, needing to take a bit of a break from your emails, getting back out in nature more, being more disciplined and dedicated when it comes to your health and fitness routines, Scorpio. There can also be something coming up around this time with a sibling, with a neighbor. You can be receiving news, you could be receiving communication. There could also be some frustrations with a car or a vehicle, or maybe not being able to use it or not being able to access it when you need it to perform your daily routines around this time. Maybe it's having an issue or someone else is using it or it's in for repairs or something like that that's maybe affecting your getting to work or affecting you going about your daily business. Scorpio with the full moon in the third house. But yes, certainly news pertaining to a sibling. Sorry, I've been doing these for a long time. A sibling or a neighbor. There could be some tensions with a neighbor, perhaps, about parameters, about gardens, about boundaries, fences, that type of thing can come up around this time also, Scorpio. But I see it more as being mindful for a lot of you about your mental health and the information that you're taking in and how that's affecting you physically, Scorpio. That is what I have for you. I hope you have a wonderful month and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hi, Sagittarius. Welcome to your horoscope for June 2026. So, Sagittarius, we ended May, last day of May, with a full moon in your first house of self. And the reason I am including it here is because the effects of that full moon will still very much be felt in the first 3 days to a week of June. So, that full moon's putting the spotlight on you, Sagittarius, and your own personal wants, needs, desires, your image, your aesthetic, your style. And perhaps for some of you, it's about a physical transformation because Jupiter is in the eighth house of transformation. So for some Sagittarius risings, maybe this is about birth, maybe it's about pregnancy, maybe this is about transforming your look, maybe trying a different style. For some of you, maybe you've been doing something cosmetic, making some sort of change to your appearance, or perhaps changing your interests with Jupiter being in the eighth. Maybe you're more interested in psychology. Maybe you're more interested in the taboo. Maybe you're more interested in astrology or the paranormal or the occult or the spooky, whatever the case may be, Sagittarius. You may be pursuing a new interest or also displaying a new interest of yours that is maybe in the eighth house domain. So the spotlight is very much on you for the first week of the month, Sagittarius. But there's also a lot happening for you this month when it comes to your relationships. So the sun is going to be going through Gemini, your seventh house of one-on-one connections until the 21st of June, and there is a new moon there on the 14th. So for some of you, if you're single, you could be beginning a new relationship around that new moon on the 14th. Maybe you're meeting a new prospective partner. And with Mercury being the dispositor in the eighth, this is someone you're very drawn to, maybe even a little bit obsessive over, or someone who is just very intriguing to you, very mysterious to you, maybe quite different, maybe quite intense, but you could be drawn to someone that you really feel a close connection to. Or within an existing relationship, you might be talking more about topics that are quite intense in nature. You know, you could be talking about your wounds, your vulnerability. You could be very vulnerable with a partner at this time. Or you could be talking about joint financial matters, mortgages, loans, taxes, your joint financial relationship. You could be discussing that with another person. Maybe for some of you, this is a legal matter pertaining to an inheritance or a loan or financial matters. But I do think for a lot of you, it could be about getting closer to somebody or exploring a relationship in a more vulnerable way, you know, connecting on an intimate level with somebody else, Sagittarius. And for those of you that are single, you could be very drawn to someone who's quite different to what you're used to, for sure. They could be very intriguing, very unusual. They could do things their own way. People might say that's a bit of an odd match for you, Sagittarius. And you might think, I don't care. Or you and a partner, you and a spouse could be trying something different. You could be trying a different approach to how you navigate challenges in your relationships, in your relationship, or you could be trying a different approach to your relationship in general, and that would be so unique and relative to you. But just watch, Sagittarius, that there could be a little bit more tension in an existing relationship from the 28th because Mars enters that sector and it just tends to make things a little bit more heated. And that can be great in a passionate way, but it can also be that in an existing relationship, you have harsh or angry words more than usual. And with Mars approaching Uranus, which will peak on the 4th of July, you could find that your words escalate into an argument out of nowhere, or tension really builds in an existing relationship or in a legal matter or with a competitor, if you have one. This could be angry words with a client also. But I think for some of you, you could be competing for something quite unusual. Sagittarius, maybe with Mars going through the seventh house connecting with Uranus, maybe an unusual competition that you're entering or you're applying for something and you have very, very different competition to what you're used to. And you have to bring something different to the table if that applies to you. But yes, big focus on new beginnings, new chapters in your relationships, Sagittarius. And because Uranus is there, it's encouraged to take a different approach or to be more open-minded or date someone who's quite different to your usual type. You might find a lot of happiness dating someone who's very different to your usual type. But oftentimes, Uranus just represents someone who's maybe quite independent. Maybe you or a partner wants a little bit more independence at this time. That doesn't have to rattle the relationship, but it might if that is something totally out of the blue and unnerving to you. Uranus can also represent partners who march to the beat of their own drum or do something a little bit unusual for their work. So there's a lot going on in your seventh house, and that goes on into July, Sagittarius. There's also a lot happening in the eighth house. As I mentioned before, this is about transformation. This also brings to the fore matters of joint financial endeavors, and this is what your mind is on, Sagittarius. I do think if you're married or you're in a committed relationship, your financial situation with your partner will probably be discussed. Mortgages will probably be discussed or reviewed, or you could be thinking more about how you communicate in your relationship. Now, the eighth house is somewhere, though, that you will probably be really very blessed, Sagittarius. So, if ever there was a month that you could be the person that receives an unexpected inheritance from someone you didn't even know, or you don't, that you were related to that you didn't even know, this could be it because there's a Venus-Jupiter conjunction, and Venus is a money planet. The Venus-Jupiter conjunction is happening in your eighth house. So benefiting from someone else financially. Maybe your spouse gets an amazing pay rise. Maybe you receive an inheritance that changes things for you. Maybe you get a very large tax rebate or you receive some sort of financial benefit from someone else or something else. Sagittarius. You get approved for a mortgage. That could be something else. But it looks like there could be some substantial financial blessing for you, Sagittarius, here. And if it's not to do with money, it can just be to do with deep soul connections with another person. Sorry, I've been doing these for a long time. It can be deep connection with another person, greater intimacy within a relationship. It can be very positive aesthetic transformations that you've been making where you feel more beautiful than you have in a long time, or you feel like any changes you've made to your appearance are really benefiting you. That can also be something with Venus meeting your ruler in the eighth house as well. So it'll be different for each of you, but it does feel as though Sagittarius eighth house matters are very much what you're thinking of because Mercury will be there from the first. Because of the retrograde, Mercury will be there for 2 months. You could be going back and forth with a partner or a client or a business relationship or in a legal matter, going back and forth over the details pertaining to something financial. Or for some of you, you could be exploring, maybe in a shadow work or a psychological perspective, your approach to relationships, maybe patterns in relationships and how they play out for you. You could be exploring a lot with a therapist with Mercury going through the eighth house. For a lot of the fire sign risings, this Mercury retrograde can be about revisiting the past in order to move forward and reflecting on your patterns with the eighth house being so activated this month. Certainly is an area of life you can benefit greatly from, Sagittarius, but it's also an area of life that will need review. If you are planning on signing a contract or making some sort of formal agreement, try not to do it from the 29th of June to the 23rd of July. It may fall through, or you may need to review it later. Other things that are happening for you this month, Sagittarius, Venus is going through the ninth house from the 13th, and Jupiter is entering that sector on the 30th. Great time, theoretically, to travel if it weren't for Mercury retrograde there. But maybe from the 13th to the 29th, you're taking a trip. That could go really very well with Venus being here. That can also be that you're planning a trip in the future. And to be honest with you, Sagittarius, if I may be so bold, you might actually be pretty okay to travel compared to the other signs because you'll have both benefics in your travel sector. And Mercury retrograde is not really related to traveling for you. So maybe for some of you, this is going to be a time where you're taking the trip of a lifetime in June or July. And yes, there could be hiccups, there could be some issues, maybe with delays or details to be ironed out. But Venus and Jupiter going through the ninth house tend to be very positive for travel. And for the next year, though, so don't rush it if you haven't booked a trip. You don't have to rush into something new as if this will disappear because Jupiter is actually going to be in that sector from the 30th of June until next June. Great year to travel. Opportunities to travel will come up and opportunities to take more vacations, to go to foreign lands, to have a great time in different countries, to connect with people from different countries. Sagittarius, you might find that this is a great time to get your master's degree or study or get into university or get into college. It can be a wonderful year to do those things. A lot of people, when they're doing a master's degree or they're graduating, have Jupiter going through the ninth house. So maybe for you, this is about getting into your dream college or your dream university. For others of you, it will be taking the trip of a lifetime, going somewhere that you've always wanted to go, traveling to your dream destination, or even just exploring your spiritual beliefs and having more fun with your spiritual perspectives. Great one for manifesting. Jupiter going through the ninth house. It's a very lucky transit. So you can expect some pretty great blessings over the next year, Sagittarius, and you might start to feel them perk up in June with Venus going through that sector. Now, the full moon on the 29th of June is in your second house. It's in a square to Saturn in your fifth. Saturn is the dispositor of the full moon also. So this full moon is highlighting your money, Sagittarius, how much you earn, how much you spend. You could be getting paid for something at this time. You could be taking a bit of a financial inventory. I think for a lot of you, you could be rebudgeting when it comes to maybe a hobby, when it comes to something you do for fun, your passions, your creative pursuits, or even your children. Perhaps there's some sort of rebudgeting issue coming up, or you're trying to be more financially frugal. Maybe you're cutting spending on something that feels too risky or feels like a gamble. Maybe some of you are addressing an issue with gambling, if that applies to you. With Saturn in the fifth house, I could see some of you deciding you need to be more frugal or wanting to be more frugal or deciding you want to save for something that would make you really happy. You know, maybe it's a guitar, maybe it is a sound system, maybe it's something that you could use creatively, or maybe you're exploring whether or not you could make money from something creative if you're not already Sagittarius. But I do think for most of you, this full moon looks like a little bit of a financially sober moment. I think you're very much focused on limiting something, restricting something, saving for something or rebudgeting something because of the connection to Saturn in the fifth and the square. Full moons in the second house tend to be where money is at the forefront of our mind. And with the Mercury retrograde, you're definitely reviewing your financial situation in relation to somebody else. For some of you, this could be nothing to do with money at all. The second house rules our values, and the eighth house is very psychological. So maybe for some of you, you're actually addressing feelings of inadequacy when it comes to a talent or creative exploration, or the things that you do enjoy or make you happy. You might notice, Sagittarius, if you have been holding yourself back a little bit too much when it comes to having a good time, exploring your talents, and expressing yourself. That is what I have for you, Sagittarius. I hope you have a great month, and I'll talk to you soon. Capricorn, welcome to your horoscope for June 2026. So, Capricorn, I'm going to begin with the full moon in Sagittarius, which actually happened on the last day of May, May 31st, but the effects of the full moon will be felt within the first week of June. So, this full moon is happening in your 12th house. It's above the horizon here, above your ascendant. It's very behind the scenes, it's very private. The dispositor of this full moon is in the 7th house. It's Jupiter in Cancer in your 7th. This means that something might be revealed to you about a relationship, something that they were keeping private, keeping secret. Could have been a good surprise, might be something that's very revealing. And it can also be that if it's not that they're revealing something to you, it could be revealing some feelings that you're having about a close relationship in your life, be it your partner, be it about partnerships in general. And you could be having dreams about your spouse, your significant other. You could be dreaming about a future person you're yet to meet, or you could be dreaming about someone from the past. But this is really bringing up your subconscious when it comes to partnerships and relationships, Capricorn. So you could be having something revealed to you at this time through a dream, or your dream could be exposing feelings about relationships and connections to you, or your partner could be sharing a secret or sharing some hidden feelings with you as well. It can also be because the 12th house is about faraway lands. Maybe you're traveling with a partner, traveling to see a partner, taking a vacation somewhere with a partner, or going to somewhere that's very, very different to where you live, Capricorn, or where you grew up. It could be that you're going to somewhere very different than your usual environment with a full moon in your 12th house. So there is a lot of focus this month for you on relationships and social connections, particularly one-on-one connection, Capricorn. And the reason for this is that from the 1st of June, Mercury is going to be in your 7th house of relationships, and then it goes retrograde on the 29th. So for 2 months, Mercury will be here, and Mercury shows us what is on our mind. In the sign of Cancer, for you, that could be your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your significant other. It could be your clients. It could be your competitors. It could be a best friend, a close connection, or just generally how you relate to other people. It feels as though you could have from the 28th of June to the 23rd of July, you could have some miscommunication with your partner, significant other, Capricorn. You could have some issues from the past that you need to address with a partner. They come up again for review. Or for some of you, maybe you're giving someone a second chance. Maybe you're giving an old relationship a second chance, and that doesn't have to be romantic. As I say, it could be an old business relationship, a best friend from the past. It could even be that clients from the past are returning to you if you have a business like that, Capricorn. But this is where your mind is. Your mind is very much on other people for a lot of the month. And believe it or not, despite the fact that there could be miscommunication on the horizon, or there could be things that need to be reviewed within a relationship, you could also have some incredible benefits coming to you through close connections, Capricorn. There's a Venus-Jupiter conjunction on the 9th of June, and Venus and Jupiter have co-presence in your 7th house of relationships until the 13th. But especially around the 9th, if you have anything 24, 25, 26 degrees of Cancer, say your descendant is there, or you maybe have Venus there, whatever the case may be, this can be an exceptional blessing for you. Maybe for some of you, this is about meeting a future spouse, meeting the one, falling in love with somebody new, getting into a new relationship, getting engaged, getting married. Or for some of you, if it were, when Jupiter goes through the 7th house, some people are surprised that they end relationships. But oftentimes it's for the best, and it feels for the best, and you feel better for it. But it can absolutely be that your blessing is coming through someone else at this time, Capricorn. So for a lot of you, this could be once in a lifetime love that comes in to your life for sure. And then that is enhanced by the fact that the sun goes into the 7th house on the 21st. So yes, there's a need to reflect on relationships and connections. And maybe if you meet somebody new, you have a misunderstanding quite soon into the relationship. And maybe you just recognize if you've been on your own for a while that you've forgotten how to communicate with a partner and you need to work through that. Or, you work through challenges early on and you realize that this is a great fit for you. Or you realize maybe you would be better off exiting a relationship. It certainly puts your relationships to the forefront of your mind for the next couple of months, Capricorn. But I do really like this one for those of you that are single because you could definitely reconnect with someone that you were meant to reconnect with. And even for those of you in relationships, if it's going well, it can absolutely grow and be enhanced in a beautiful, a beautiful way that really feels like a blessing. So a lot of activity happening in your partnership sector, Capricorn, that is worth thinking about or revisiting or reflecting on. So if you do hear from somebody from the past and you ended for reasons that were not awful, maybe you're just living in different cities or you were too young when you got together. Like, it's more about maybe reconnecting with someone that was the one that got away. But it doesn't even have to be a new person. It could be, sorry, it doesn't even have to be an old person. It can be a new person too with this Venus Jupiter meetup. It could certainly be for some of you the love of a lifetime, Capricorn. And also, we do have Mars going through the fifth house. So I think romance is something that you're pursuing. If you are looking for it, you might be more active in pursuing people that you're interested in asking them out or showing them interest. It can also bring a little bit of tension if you are dating. You could butt heads on certain things with Mars going through the fifth house. Mars going through the fifth house can also be, it can bring a bit of tension when it comes to your children if you have them. They can be a little bit more annoying than usual. Mars going through the fifth, maybe more argumentative, more irritating. Chiron is actually going to be entering Taurus on the 19th of June, and this can bring about a recognition within you, Capricorn, that you need to do some inner child healing. So you might realize that you lost touch with an interest from childhood or a passion from childhood because maybe you were embarrassed about it or you didn't feel good enough at it. And you might reconnect with that interest and it could be very healing for you. You might be working on reparenting yourself, on maybe working through some pain from childhood and really giving yourself some love and healing when it comes to your inner child, Capricorn. And maybe that's being triggered by your own children acting out or acting in a certain way. You might also be addressing any wounding that you have around dating, romance, and lovability, or even creative expression, Capricorn. We do have a bit of focus on your health this month. The sun is going to be in your sixth house of health, wellness, your wellness routines, your routines in general, and your job until the 21st. And we have a new moon there on the 14th. For some of you, there could be a new job on the horizon in June. And if you are beginning a new job, Capricorn, be wary of signing any contracts between the 29th of June and the 23rd of July because they might need to be revisited later. They could be quite temporary. They could be subject to change. You might miss important parts of the agreement, and it might not necessarily be exactly what you signed up for. But around the new moon on the 14th, some of you could be starting a new job where perhaps you work very closely with one person specifically. You could be getting a personal trainer. You could be getting a nutritionalist. You could be getting a mentor when it comes to your health, a new doctor, maybe. A new health practitioner because Mercury will be in the seventh house, one-on-one relationships. Some of you could also, if you start a new job, there might be a prospective partner there, or a love interest, or a prospective business partner. You could meet someone maybe in the gym. You could be starting a new gym or signing up for something new when it comes to your health and fitness. Especially when Mars enters that sector on the 28th, you could be very motivated by health, fitness, wellness. Your co-workers could be more irritating, though, with Mars going through the sixth house, Capricorn. Mars is building to its conjunction with Uranus, which happens exactly on the 4th of July. But in the last part of June, you'll be feeling that building. Tension building with a co-worker, tension building in your job, tension building with something health related, tension building in the gym. You could encounter an angry man in the weights section. It's kind of Mars Uranus energy is explosive. It's also very accelerated. So when it comes to your health and well-being, if you have not ran in 5 years, don't suddenly decide at the end of June you're going to run a 10K. Don't suddenly jump into something out of nowhere because you could injure yourself. And prioritizing your health and your wellness is very important this month, Capricorn. But taking any sudden jolts or pushing beyond your limits too quickly can result in injury. So be mindful of that, especially because we have a full moon on the 29th in your sign. This is your physical body, the first house. First house is always the physical body. And it's in a square to Saturn, and the fourth Saturn is your ruling planet. Saturn is the dispositor of this full moon, and it's in the sign of Aries where it's not so strong. So, with a full moon looming in your first house, and there being some rather jarring activity with Mars and Uranus in your sixth, I would say prioritize your health and well-being, but also be not wildly restrictive with yourself, but have boundaries, have patience, know your limits with that square to Mars. That full moon can be a little bit emotional for you too, Capricorn. If you're frustrated about your living situation or your home situation, you might realize that something has to give, or if there is unfair distribution of chores in the home or with your family, or lack of boundaries with your family, you could be feeling quite emotional about that. And you could be setting some boundaries and maybe making your thoughts and opinions clear. Emotions could certainly come to the fore for you, Capricorn, about a home matter or how you feel about your family or your living situation or a property matter as well. We also have Venus going into your eighth house from the 13th, and Jupiter is going to enter your eighth house from the 30th. So the benefics are in your eighth house and the second half of the month, leading more so into July. In fact, Venus going through the eighth house can be really lovely for intimate relationships. It can be a time when you're attracting money from other people, or it's a better time to get approved for a mortgage or a loan or a grant. And it can also be about wanting more authenticity in your connections, Capricorn, being drawn to maybe being a little bit more vulnerable with a partner or them being a little bit more vulnerable with you. Jupiter entering that sector on the 30th. Obviously, the 30th is the last day of the month. And so, you're not going to suddenly feel all the effects of Jupiter on the 30th, unless you have a Leo placement at 0 degrees. But Jupiter going through the sector for the next year can really bless you in terms of benefiting financially from other people or someone else. That can be when you get the mortgage, that can be when you get the loan you need, the financial backing, you get an inheritance that serves you, or you get a tax rebate, or you benefit from other people financially. You have to be careful though of with Jupiter going through the eighth house racking up debt. Because sometimes you can feel more optimistic about, oh, I can attract this in and I can attract that in. Be careful of that too. It can also bring about very deep, meaningful connections in your life with that eighth house connection, also with Jupiter going through there. But it does tend to be a time where you benefit from other people. So try not to be too limiting in receiving help or receiving some sort of assistance over the next year, Capricorn, because you can certainly attract abundance to you through your relationships and your connections with other people. That can be your spouse maybe gets a pay rise, or you pay off the mortgage, or you maybe find that it's easier for you to be open in a relationship and in your connections, and that's improving your connections generally, Capricorn, as well. Because it's the eighth house, and the eighth house is a crisis house. Oftentimes, if a crisis occurs, Jupiter going through here brings the right support, or it limits its impact. And Jupiter also for you, Capricorn, rules siblings. So you could be noticing that the life of a sibling is changing quite substantially over the next year as well, or the life of a cousin or a neighbor or your local community generally. So that's what I have for you, Capricorn. I hope you have a wonderful month and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Aquarius, welcome to your horoscope for June 2026. Aquarius, I'm going to start with the full moon in Sagittarius, which happened on the 31st of May, because the effects of this full moon are still very much felt in the first 3 days to the first week of June. And this full moon has happened in your 11th house. This is highlighting the teams that you're a part of, team members, memberships that you have, groups that you're a part of, your friends, your friendship circle. And the dispositor of this full moon was in your sixth house, or is in your sixth house of health, of wellness routines, of work. So a full moon in the 11th house could bring a social get together. And it could bring about changes when it comes to your friendships, your teams, your clubs, your memberships. Maybe linked to sport, maybe linked to physical activity. For some of you, this could be a running club, a golf club. You could be maybe competing in a high rocks competition. That seems to be all the rage right now. It could be that you are joining a gym and you're making friends there, or you're joining a workout class, or you are socializing with coworkers, maybe even with Jupiter in the sixth house, or socializing with your job. There could be a networking event or a social event linked to your work, Aquarius. Now, the sixth house is going to be something that's very much on your mind because Mercury enters your sixth house on the 1st of June and will actually be there for 2 months because Mercury is going to go retrograde on the 29th. And where Mercury goes is where our attention is mentally, what we're thinking about. And so you might be thinking more about your job. You might be thinking more about the role that you play at work, your colleagues, your coworkers. You might be communicating more with people you work with. It could be busier at work. You might be thinking more about your health, your wellness routines. You might be thinking more about the gym or exercise or nutrition, Aquarius. Mercury retrograde from the 29th of June to the 23rd of July means that you will be rethinking these things, reorganizing yourself at work, re-strategizing your routine, reconnecting with people you used to work with, fixing mistakes from the past that were missed, addressing miscommunications in your job, or generally reflecting on how you approach health and wellness, Aquarius. There can be misunderstandings at work. You can send an email to the wrong person, you can send it without the attachment, you can be late for your personal training session. You might need to reschedule classes, reschedule doctor's appointments. You might have a follow-up appointment for something. But Mercury retrograde can indeed make things a little bit trickier when it comes to organizing. So if you're trying to organize something new, it might not go to plan. You might need to reorganize anything pertaining to health. So a doctor's appointment, dentist, uh, fitness session, nutrition session. You might need to rethink these areas as well. But this is also an area of life for you, Aquarius, that can be really very blessed in June because Venus and Jupiter are both going to be in the sixth house until the 13th. They actually meet by conjunction on the 9th. They met in August last year, so that might ring some bells for you when it comes to health, wellness, work, what was going on then. It really looks like good times, maybe with people that you work with, perhaps an increased social life, or maybe some romantic interest comes through your work, or maybe you feel a lot of purpose and a lot of spiritual strength in what you're doing. You align yourself with a job that feels really good for you. Maybe you get the right gym, you find the right gym wear that makes you look your best. You might be excelling in sport, or you might be seeing improvements in your health and your wellness as well, Aquarius, with that meetup there. The sun activates the sector even more so on the 21st, but with that retrograde in mind at the end of the month, push forward indeed with health matters, wellness matters, but just be mindful that any appointments or any approaches may need to be revisited after the 29th, Aquarius. And while we're on the 29th, that is also the day of the full moon in Capricorn. And that's in your 12th house of behind the scenes. The 12th house would be our mental health, our healing journey, our spiritual health, our spiritual wellness. It would be our sleep. And this full moon is slightly tricky because it's in a square to Saturn in the third house. So I feel like this is maybe highlighting any challenging thoughts, or you could be feeling a little bit negative around this time or a little bit more pessimistic, Aquarius, than usual. You could be noticing patterns that you have in terms of thinking, in terms of communication that are maybe not healthy, maybe that don't work for you, or you might notice how much you discourage yourself on a regular basis with your own thoughts. You become more aware of your own thoughts. So try to focus on making your mind a nicer place to be. With that square, you might have some discussion with a sibling or a neighbor or a cousin that feels unsettling or feels frustrating. There might be some sort of restriction or barrier there with you and a sibling, you and a neighbor, maybe not quite seeing eye to eye. And perhaps you have to reflect on communication styles generally with Saturn in the third. Maybe you're finding that you feel a certain way, but you don't quite know how to communicate it, or you don't know how much you can say just yet, or you're keeping a secret that maybe feels quite heavy. You're keeping something to yourself. You could also be having dreams that feel a little bit heavy with that square. Your sibling could be telling you something, a neighbor could be telling you something. You could be learning, receiving information that maybe feels a little bit heavy in general, Aquarius. But I do think for a lot of you, this could be more so about noticing where you have self-sabotaging thoughts or a self-sabotaging narrative. You might be deciding to give something up at this time. For some of you, this could be challenges. These could be challenges related to a car or a phone. It might be on its last legs with Saturn in the third house. Some of you might be deciding to go for a more practical car or a more practical phone or a more practical gadget and maybe scale back a little bit on the technologies. You could be limiting your relationship to technology with the 12th and third house, maybe limiting your relationship to the internet, trying to reduce your screen time as well with a full moon in the 12th. There's also a lot of activity happening in your fifth house. Now, this is the fun house. So the sun is there until the 21st, and there's a new moon there on the 14th. That new moon, the dispositor is Mercury in the sixth. And as I said, Mercury is going to be there for a while. Your mind is very much on sixth house matters, health, wellness, work. A new moon in the fifth house can be a time to set a new intention when it comes to your love life, when it comes to dating, or when it comes to creativity, what you do for fun. It can also be about your children, pregnancies, births. These can all be intentions that you're setting around this time. The trick is with Uranus there to be open-minded. Maybe dating someone who's a bit different to your usual type or your usual expectations. That doesn't mean that you won't be attracted to them. It just might be that you notice that you are attracted to somebody who is quite Uranian, maybe a bit unusual, maybe a bit zany, maybe they do something odd for work. Maybe they don't look like what you expected, but you find them very attractive. It can be that you meet them through work or through the gym or through sports. For some of you, it can be that there's a new beginning with your children. There can be a new beginning happening in their life. Maybe they're starting a new job if they're old enough, or maybe there's something coming up with them on a health perspective, wellness perspective. Maybe you're assessing your own wellness when it comes to pregnancy, birth. Maybe there's a checkup going on around this time for you that coincides with those different types of themes. But this can also be quite a nice new moon to set an intention creatively, something that you want to work on, a creative passion that you want to put your energy into. For some of you, it can be a sport or a wellness hobby as well, with Mercury being in the sixth house. Now, Mars is going to enter the fifth from the 29th. Before then, Mars is in the fourth. So I just want to follow the Mars trajectory for a second until the 28th. Mars is in your fourth house. Chiron enters that sector on the 19th. This is a new one for most of you. Unless you're over 50, you won't have encountered this. People have their Chiron return around 50. And Chiron going through the fourth house is about healing and addressing wounding surrounding home, family, your childhood, your lineage, your ancestry. These might be areas of life that you realize you need to do some healing. Chiron is a healing journey in terms of a transit. So when it goes through the fourth house, which is a longer term transit, and Chiron will return to Aries, you could notice that there are things coming up for healing within your family, maybe family relationships, maybe you're reconciling or you are addressing issues within family or within the home. Mars going through this sector until the 28th does bring a bit of tension when it comes to the home, when it comes to family. You might notice yourself get into disagreements or arguments with family members or roommates. And you could also find that you want to take a hammer to things in your home. The sign of Taurus, this can also be wanting to gut out the garden, wanting to finally get the garden in good shape, taking your frustrations out, channeling your anger or excess energy into creating a beautiful garden or working with wood or DIY or something like that, Aquarius. When Mars goes into the fifth house from the 28th, it's building in this conjunction to Uranus, which happens early July, July 4th to be exact. And it's quite an explosive energy. Mars connecting with Uranus in the fifth house can bring unexpected, intense attractions to other people. It can also perhaps bring unexpected tension with a love interest, or your child could be acting out in a rather surprising way. They could be a source of shock for you. With Uranus and Mars connecting in the fifth house or that build up at the end of June, this can also be an unexpected pregnancy, maybe for some of you. Mars and Uranus can be quite volatile when they get together, so you might notice that a child they have a very bad temper around this time. Maybe something is going on with them health-wise and they're really acting out, or maybe you lose your temper with a child and you have heated words, heated discussions with that conjunction. And yeah, it can be quite a volatile one, so just be mindful of it. Practice with Gemini energy, centering yourself, coming back to your breath, that type of thing, because tensions can escalate with that particular conjunction. We also have some partnership energy coming in for you this month, Aquarius. Venus is going to be entering your partnership sector from the 13th, which is beautiful for finding love. It's beautiful for being in a relationship. Lovely times with your spouse, with your significant other, harmonizing in your relationships, getting on better with other people. And then Jupiter enters that sector on the 30th, and it's the very end of the month, so you might not feel it so much in June, but it'll be there for a year and there will be eclipses. So a lot of you can find the one. You can find a significant other, a new relationship. With Jupiter being there, sometimes it can be long distance. Jupiter can also, because it rules your friendship sector, be someone you meet through friends or was a friend. That tends to suit Aquarius rising people and Aquarius sun people, friendship first dynamics. Or it can just be that that area of life is expanding for you. So maybe in July, there are new relationships forming, engagements, moving in together, getting married, traveling more with your significant other, getting on better with your significant other. It can also be fortuitous if you are going through legal matters, Jupiter going through the seventh. And it can just generally be a time where you find your connections are very fruitful. Your connections with other people, very fruitful, very meaningful, and you learn a lot from your relationships. If you're in a relationship that's not working, Aquarius, this can be when you have the type of breakup that feels surprisingly good. You feel free from the relationship, or you feel as though you end on good terms. That can happen. But it can also be that if you do leave a relationship, you find somebody else as well, because Jupiter going through the seventh tends to bring opportunities for connection and partnership. But that's what I have for you, Aquarius. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I will talk to you soon. Hi, Pisces. Welcome to your horoscope for June 2026. So, Pisces, I'm going to begin the horoscope with the full moon in Sagittarius, which happened on May 31st. The effects of this full moon, despite happening in May, will be felt in the first 3 to 7 days of June. Now, this full moon is highlighting your professional sector, your goals, your purpose, your public image, your reputation. And so, with this full moon, you might be more aware of what you want from your career. You might be reflecting on your goals for the future, on your next adventure when it comes to your career, or your professional path. It might also be that you're feeling very in the spotlight at this time and very seen. And I feel as though it's positive, Pisces, because Jupiter is the dispositor and Jupiter is exalted in Cancer in your fifth house. So you might be recognized at this time for your talents. You might be recognized especially for your side business. You might be recognized for your creative talents, hobbies, passions. For some of you, you could also be publicly announcing a pregnancy or going Instagram official, debuting a new romantic partner. That could be something that's happening for you as well, Pisces, or you could be displaying your work, your passions, and your creativity. But it feels as though you're being very much seen, Pisces, for your talents and your passions at this time. So if you want some visibility, the first 3 to 7 days of June, you have it. So make the most of it. Don't be afraid to put your art out there, your work out there, or to be seen. You might also find a romantic interest appearing through your work or through your professional pathways, Pisces, if you're looking for that. And speaking of that sector, there is quite a lot happening in your fifth house of love, romance, and dating. So Venus and Jupiter are going to be there together until the 13th when Venus enters Leo. Venus and Jupiter connect in Cancer on the 9th of June. And this can absolutely be about falling in love. This can be about connecting with your dream person, finding a wonderful catch, dating somebody who is exactly what you want, falling head over heels in love. This can be about feeling more abundant in love when it comes to romantic options, maybe receiving a lot of attention romantically, Pisces, with this co-presence between Venus and Jupiter. And you can fall in love very hard with this. You know, Jupiter is your ruler. Jupiter rules your 10th. So as I say, the first part of June, especially the first week and a bit, you could find love through a professional path or perhaps fall for someone who is very career driven. That could be something that happens, or someone even with Jupiter who is very knowledgeable, very wise. The sun is going to enter that romantic sector on the 21st, and Mercury is going to be in that sector from the 1st of June for 2 months because Mercury is going to go retrograde at the end of June on the 29th. Mercury is what we think about. Mercury is where our mind is. So for you, your mind, Pisces, will be on a romantic interest, a romantic partner. Mercury actually rules your seventh house of relationships. It'll be on a romantic partner, your living situation pertaining to love and romance as well. But you'll be thinking more about love, romance. For those of you that have children or are looking to get pregnant, this month can absolutely be a month of great joy and blessings when it comes to your children, when it comes to pregnancies, births, that type of thing, with the Venus Jupiter meetup. And Mercury going retrograde in the sector can have you reflecting on your approach to dating and romance, or your approach to your relationship with your children, if you have them, how you communicate with your children, how you uh, approach parenting can also be something that you're reflecting on and rethinking with Mercury retrograde. Just bear in mind that whether the fifth house for you is about love and new romance, or whether it is about children, pregnancies, just bear in mind there can be misunderstandings with Mercury retrograde. Now, if it's not to do with love and it's not to do with children, the artistic Pisceans can make their best work this month with Venus and Jupiter. You could create the song of the century. You could write the most beautiful poem. You could create the most beautiful cake with Cancer energy. You could absolutely create something so very beautiful this month. And you could feel very creative and very passionate about something, Pisces, and really put your heart and your soul into it. And as I said with Mercury retrograde, it just extends the amount of time you're thinking about these things, but it is also a time to reflect on maybe your living situation, maybe your relationships, your relationship to romance, or your relationship to children, or your relationship to your art, reflecting on how you're thinking about these things and maybe re-strategizing a creative project or communicating differently with your children. So there is a lot of activity happening in your fifth house. There's also a lot of activity happening in your fourth, Pisces. And Mercury is the co-ruler of your fourth, or rather, Mercury is the ruler of your fourth, rules your fourth and your seventh. So the retrograde impacts your home too. The sun is in your fourth house of home and family until the 21st, and there's a new moon there on the 14th. So for a lot of you, this month could be a time where there's a new beginning with your living situation. Uranus is there now, as you can see. Uranus is now in your fourth house. There could be unexpected events and activities happening in your home. You might unexpectedly move. You might be looking for a more alternative living arrangement, or a living arrangement may appear, an opportunity to live somewhere else or in some other way that you didn't expect may appear, and you might think, actually, this is something I really want to do. Because Uranus tends to bring a little bit of disruption to the status quo. So you might be looking to live somewhere where you feel as free as possible. You might be wanting to move somewhere that is very different to where you grew up. You might unexpectedly move. With Mercury being the dispositor of the new moon, for some Pisces risings, maybe you are moving in with a romantic interest. For others of you, maybe you're moving because you're expanding your family, you're having more children, and you want a bigger space. For some of you, you could also be wanting to create a space in your home to make art or be creative or run your side business. That can be something that's happening as well. But there can definitely be a new beginning happening in your home or living situation this month, Pisces. Mars enters that sector on the 29th, and Mars is building from the 29th to its conjunction to Uranus, which is early July and July 4th. This can escalate tensions within the home, tensions with a family member. Things can feel a little bit touchy, explosive, confrontation can come out of nowhere. Be careful of accidents around the home with that Mars Uranus conjunction. It can bring unexpected accidents or breakages, especially if you have an IC at around 2, 3, 4 degrees of Gemini. But this can also be where things suddenly move very quickly, and maybe you're finding yourself suddenly moving and it feels very overwhelming. A move might happen very quickly. The sale or purchase of a property could happen very quickly, and it could all come out of nowhere. And before you know it, you're living somewhere else and you feel a little bit overwhelmed. That can be one way that that plays out as well, Pisces. If you're looking to move or if you're looking to have a different living situation, great new moon on the 14th to set intentions. For some of you, it may also just be redecorating and bringing more creativity and even romance into your home. Maybe decorating in a way that feels very romantic. That could be something that you're interested in, Pisces. Now, before Mars goes into your family sector, Mars is going to be rummaging through your third house. So, because the third house is communication, Pisces, you'll notice one of two things. You'll notice that you are accidentally upsetting people by saying something quite blunt and abrupt, or you will notice that people are saying things that feel really blunt and abrupt to you. And you sort of think, why are you saying that? That's so mean. That can happen with Mars going through the third house, especially social media, comment sections, people leaving you, trolls if you're on social media, that type of thing. I can't tell you the amount of mean messages that I got when Mars was squaring Pluto from my third. Sometimes there's a benefit in knowing astrology because you kind of think, oh, well, it's just Mars. But it can bring rather tense verbal energy your way. People saying things that can be a bit hurtful, or you saying things that upset other people you might not mean to. It might not even be that other people are meaning to upset you, but sometimes Mars going through the third can hurt your feelings because of what somebody said, or you can hurt someone else's. And it's interesting too because Chiron is entering Taurus on the 19th. And so you might need to heal your communication style. And you might notice some wounding coming up in terms of what you say, wounding around, wounding around, wounding around writing, communication that needs to come up for healing. There can also be disagreements with neighbors, siblings. There can be tension in those areas. There can be tension with cousins. There can be social media tension, as I said, but there can also be this insatiable need for more information. listening to so many podcasts, taking in so much information online to the point you feel a bit burnt out. So do watch for that, Pisces. Full moon on the 29th is in Capricorn. It's in your 11th house. And full moons in the 11th are usually quite lovely. They're usually times where you're connecting with friends, you're getting together with friends, it's social, it feels lively, you're thinking about the future, you're manifesting, a wish could come true. This one is a little bit tempered though. It's tempered by Saturn in Aries in the second. So there could be a social activity, a social adventure, a gathering, a networking opportunity with friends, but maybe it costs a little bit more than you wanted with Saturn in the second. Or maybe you're in a group of people and you're having conversations and you're realizing that your values with these people kind of clash a little bit, and that might feel a little isolating at times. Or you just feel as though you're, you might feel a little bit more self-conscious or self-aware in a group of people or with networking, or you're joining a club you really want to join, say it's a golf club, and you go to sign up and you realize that it's more expensive than you thought, or you recognize under this full moon that you've been spending a lot of money on social activities, groups, memberships, teams, and you're needing to maybe be a little bit more selective with what you're going to or what you're signing up for. It can also be a bit of a reevaluation when it comes to the future and your future aspirations, and maybe scaling back to say, this is the thing that matters most, and I want to focus more on that. You know, you really want to condense how many things you're putting money into, or especially with social activities and social networks. This can also be a bit of a testing period for a friendship in particular, because maybe you are having a clash of values, or maybe you feel taken for granted, or they feel taken for granted, Pisces. Venus is going to enter your sixth house on the 13th, and this can be really, really great for socializing with your workmates. It can be a time of finding love in the workplace. It can be a time for buying the right athleisure wear, gym wear, sports wear, enjoying your social life at the gym or through sports or through wellness, more social activities linked to those places, more social events in work, perhaps through your workplace with your co-workers, and also noticing the beauty benefit from taking better care of your health, Pisces. Now, Jupiter is going to enter that sector on the 30th, and that's going to last a year, that transit. Jupiter going through the sixth house can bring you a better job. It can bring you better times with your co-workers. You can really like the people you work with. You can find a better gym. You can find a better beautician. You can enjoy your work. You can enjoy where you work. You can get opportunities to travel through your work, to advance in your work. You can get super fit. You can get super interested in nutrition and fitness and wellness. You can excel in sports. You can run your first marathon. You can do things that you didn't think you could do before physically, especially because Jupiter is the ruler of your first. So there can be great benefits coming to you, Pisces, in terms of your work, your wellness, and your fitness when Jupiter enters your sixth house. And that is what I have for you. I hope you have a great month, and I will talk to you soon.